The story opens with a tense and unsettling scene. A young woman sits in the back of a car, her head spinning from an unknown cause. She struggles to stay conscious, her thoughts drifting as dizziness overtakes her. The driver notices her condition and, with a raised brow, casually suggests she might have had too much to drink. She mumbles weakly about feeling unwell, but her resistance fades. Her eyelids grow heavy, and eventually she slumps against the seat, completely unconscious. The driver notices immediately, and a subtle smirk forms on his face. Seizing the opportunity, he suddenly brings the car to a screeching halt in a deserted, eerie location. Moments later, another man appears, joining him. The two exchange looks that make their intentions clear. They approach the unconscious woman with sinister purpose. Just as they are about to act, the woman suddenly opens her eyes. Her voice is unsteady, but there is awareness in it as she questions what they are doing. The second man dismisses her concern with false reassurance, while the driver, now openly threatening, tells her to stay still and promises her a good time. Despite her weakened state, she firmly warns them to reconsider. They laugh it off, mocking her, convinced she is powerless. However, the moment one of them lets his guard down, she strikes. With a swift and precise kick, she knocks him to the ground. Her eyes are now sharp and focused, and she calmly remarks that she had already warned them. Before the situation can escalate further, flashing police lights cut through the darkness, and officers rush onto the scene. A lieutenant calls out her name in alarm and runs toward her. He is visibly shaken by the bloodstains covering her body, though his reaction suggests he is not entirely surprised. Other officers gather around, whispering among themselves, until one of them recognizes her. She is Sergeant Hannah Lee, a highly skilled counterterrorism agent, formerly part of a special missions unit and now affiliated with a private military company. Her reputation is formidable, with a flawless mission record and an enormous bounty placed on her head. It is also revealed that her twin brother serves in the intelligence service, making them a powerful and unusual pair. The lieutenant scolds Hannah, reminding her that she had been explicitly told not to kill anyone. She calmly responds that she did not kill them, though the condition of her attackers makes him doubtful. She explains that she had been intoxicated and acted in self-defense, albeit with excessive force. She hands over critical evidence, including a burner phone used to record the crime and a knife the attackers had carried. She points out that their actions constitute attempted murder and robbery, and possibly sexual assault and intimidation. Then, without hesitation, she demands the lieutenant's shirt, pointing out how clean it is compared to her blood-soaked clothes. Reluctantly, he complies. As the attackers are taken into custody, the lieutenant thanks her, acknowledging that without her intervention they might have escaped justice. Hannah, however, shows little interest in gratitude, and instead asks for compensation. She hints that his career will benefit from these arrests, and he eventually agrees to treat her once he gets paid. As they head toward the police car, she asks him to keep her involvement confidential. Curious, he brings up her brother, asking about his whereabouts. She casually mentions that he has been traveling extensively and was last in Cambodia. The lieutenant comments on how quickly her brother transitioned into real missions after his time in an elite naval unit, noting his intelligence and involvement in overseas narcotics investigations. At that moment, Hannah receives a call from a Cambodian number. A sense of unease immediately grips her. When she answers, the caller identifies themselves as a representative of the National Security and Intelligence Service. Even before the message is delivered, she senses something is wrong. Then comes the devastating news. Her brother did not survive his last mission. The lieutenant watches as her expression changes. She grows visibly angry, shouting into the phone, refusing to accept what she is hearing. She insists that it must be a lie, that her brother cannot be dead. But the emotional strain overwhelms her. She suddenly collapses, sobbing uncontrollably, the pain hitting her like a physical force. Later, at home, she recalls a childhood memory. Her brother had once promised to protect her no matter what. That promise echoes in her mind as she stares at an old photograph of the two of them. She declares that he is the reason she returned to Korea. Suddenly, a phone rings. She rushes to find it, her heart racing with hope. When she answers, she hears his voice. It is faint and distorted, but unmistakably his. She urgently asks where he is, but the signal is too weak. Desperate, she tells him to give her his coordinates. Through the static, he mentions a name, Randy, and warns of danger. Realizing the severity of the situation, she tells him to stay on the line and remain silent so she can trace the call. Despite being told he is dead, she now knows he is alive, but in grave danger. Determined, she resolves to go to Cambodia immediately. Meanwhile, in Sicily, Italy, a powerful figure emerges. A man named Julio Parenti, the leader of the Sicilian mafia, steps out of a pool, calm and composed. He is informed about an incident in Cambodia, including the death of a man named Niccolo. Without hesitation, Julio orders preparations to be made. He intends to leave at once, convinced that someone is waiting for him. Back in the present, a man named Tai Jun contacts Hannah, his voice filled with guilt. He apologizes for failing to protect her brother. Hannah, composed but firm, cuts him off and demands answers. When she asks about her brother's body, Tae-jun admits that it was never found due to a bomb explosion. He suspects that her brother may have taken something from the mafia, which led to an attempted assassination using a suicide bomber. Hannah wastes no time. She orders Tae-jun to meet her at Phnom Penh Airport at a specific time. When he asks if she is really coming, she makes it clear that since there is no body, she will assume her brother is alive and search for him herself. Soon after, she arrives in Cambodia. The heat and chaos of Phnom Penh surround her as she waits for Tae-jun. When he finally arrives, he takes her to a tuk-tuk he has arranged. His nervous behavior immediately raises her suspicions. He claims to be off-duty, but his demeanor suggests otherwise. During the ride, Hannah presses him for information, handing him a phone and demanding the exact coordinates of the last place he saw her brother. Reluctantly, he tells her it was about 75 kilometers north, near Siem Reap, in a small village. He warns her not to get involved, but she ignores him and begins interrogating him with relentless precision. She asks about her brother's mission, his contacts, the drugs involved, even the clothes he was wearing. Her tone makes it clear that she will not tolerate hesitation. Eventually, Tae-jun gives in, agreeing to cooperate one last time. They make their way to her brother's apartment, where Hannah begins searching for clues. The place is meticulously organized, just as she remembers. Every detail reflects his personality, disciplined and precise. But the circumstances of his supposed death do not align with the man she knows. As Tae-jun begins to explain the details of their recent investigation, it becomes clear that something far more complex is unfolding, and Hannah is determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Tae-jun explains that he and her brother had been investigating a new drug known as Ka-9947A. Their mission focused on tracing its distribution network, which appeared to be controlled by the Italian mafia. What made the drug particularly dangerous was its ability to be disguised as a legitimate medical substance, allowing it to circulate without raising suspicion, unlike typical hallucinogens. He continues, admitting that he lost contact with her brother shortly before they were supposed to meet at a rendezvous point connected to the drug exchange. When he finally tracked him down, he demanded answers, only to discover that her brother had chosen to operate alone. The revelation that he may have had direct contact with the mafia leaves Tae-jun visibly shaken. As Hannah listens, doubt begins to take root. She cannot fully trust Tae-jun, especially given his earlier nervous behavior. A lingering suspicion forms that he may have already reported her presence to his superiors. For now, she chooses to remain cautious, keeping her distance while extracting as much information as possible. She is also aware that even her brother's apartment may no longer be safe. To counter any potential surveillance, she turns on the television and raises the volume to its maximum, using the noise as a shield against hidden listening devices. As she observes the apartment more closely, she notices something subtle but important. Her brother had always been obsessively organized, and while everything appears neat, certain details are slightly off. The drink labels are not perfectly aligned, and the clothes hangers are arranged incorrectly. Whoever was here tried to replicate his habits but failed to capture the precision. Determined to uncover what was hidden, Hannah enters his room. There she recognizes a device he once showed her, a projector cleverly disguised as a lamp. Realizing that he must have left something behind intentionally, she prepares herself for a difficult decision. She reaches for her phone and calls someone she had never intended to contact again. On the other end, a man answers with a cheerful tone, but Hannah remains silent at first. After a brief pause, he jokes that she must have dialed the wrong number while drunk, just like she used to. She cuts straight to the point, asking how he is. The man is revealed to be Logan. He quickly deduces her location and questions why she is in Cambodia. Hannah responds with suspicion, implying that he might be keeping tabs on her. Logan, amused, admits that he has missed her and jokes about enjoying watching over her. Eventually, Hannah reveals that she needs his help. In return, she promises valuable information about a case she is working on, hinting that it will interest him. When he asks for details, she mentions the mafia, specifically Julio Parenti of the Sicilian mafia. That is enough to secure his attention. Logan agrees without hesitation and asks what she needs. Her answer is simple. She wants access to her old weapons. The scene then shifts to Valentine's Day, a private military company known for handling high-risk operations. Despite its name, there is nothing gentle about its methods. When they target someone, it almost always ends in death. At a safe house in Cambodia, Hannah arrives on a bike, coming to a sharp stop. A former colleague greets her warmly, embracing her and asking if she has returned to rejoin their ranks. She dismisses the idea, explaining that she is only here for assistance, and immediately asks about Logan. The colleague, slightly disappointed, informs her that Logan is at the office. Soon after, Logan Valentine himself appears. Hannah presents him with a recording she found in her brother's apartment. The footage reveals a complex web involving high-profile criminals, intelligence agencies like the FBI and CIA, and the mafia. It strongly suggests that Julio Parenti was involved in her brother's disappearance. Although the official report claims he died during a mission, Hannah believes he was actually gathering intelligence on both Russian and Italian criminal organizations. Logan, however, questions her conclusion. He points out that Parenti is not known for kidnapping. He prefers quick, efficient killings and would not waste time on elaborate schemes. As they analyze the footage further, Hannah mentions that individuals named Smith and Petro developed connections with Parenti after a terrorist attack in Chicago a year earlier. During their review, Logan recognizes a figure in the footage, a client known as Mr. Kong. When questioned, he remains vague, stating only that the client is highly confidential. They deduce that Mujin Kong is a rising tycoon, and someone of Parenti's stature would not typically involve himself in minor drug operations. This raises the possibility that someone may have impersonated Parenti, a tactic not uncommon in the drug trade. Logan even suggests that Hannah's own intelligence service may have intentionally overlooked this possibility. Discussion is interrupted when a man enters with new information. He reports that goods belonging to Parenti were stolen by a Cambodian criminal organization known as Mesa. Hannah, curious, is introduced to the man as Yan Song-yu. He greets her warmly, revealing his Korean heritage and expressing a willingness to assist her during her time in Cambodia. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Tae-jun grows increasingly anxious as he searches for Hannah. When she finally returns, he immediately scolds her for going out alone, warning her about the dangers of the area. She ignores his concern, drinks a bottle of water in one go, and slams it down on the table. Then her demeanor shifts. Calm but intense, she admits that there are too many things she does not understand, not just about her brother's case, but about Tae-jun himself. Without hesitation, she pulls out a gun and points it directly at him, demanding honesty. She begins dismantling his story piece by piece. She points out inconsistencies in the surveillance footage, especially how her brother entered a building with mobsters and was later dragged out before a bomb exploded. If the intention was to kill him, why show his face so clearly on camera? It feels staged. She further reveals that the intelligence service declared him dead based on an edited video, not the original footage. Under pressure, Tae-jun finally cracks. He admits that they found a body with a damaged suicide vest, making identification difficult. The only reason they concluded it was her brother was because of a dog tag found at the scene. Hannah keeps the gun trained on him and coldly declares that from this moment on, he is her accomplice. She orders him to stop investigating her and to inform his superiors that she has not left the apartment. In return, she will pretend to believe his story. Reluctantly, Tae-jun agrees. Hannah then signals Yansong, who swiftly knocks him unconscious. As he falls, Yansong remarks that it feels like a betrayal. Hannah, however, remains composed. She states that it is too early to call it betrayal. The truth has yet to reveal itself. In the next scene, Hannah is riding a bike with Yansong accompanying her. He asks if she plans to leave, and she explains that Logan has provided her with the coordinates of a safe house. There is a strong possibility that the Cambodian crime syndicate will target it, especially after stealing from Parenti. Yansong advises caution, suggesting she lay low until they gather more information, as Parenti is likely to act soon. But Hannah has no intention of waiting. She decides to infiltrate the safe house ahead of everyone else. Before they part ways, Yansong casually asks about her personal life, wondering if she is seeing anyone. She confirms that she is. With a light-hearted response, he steps back, joking that he will not interfere. He wishes her safety as she speeds off. As he watches her disappear into the distance, Yansong quietly reflects on the situation, finding it both fascinating and dangerous. He cannot help but think that what lies ahead will only grow more complicated. Hannah finally arrives at the Valentine's Day safe house. She pauses for a moment, taking in her surroundings. The place is exactly as she remembers. A hub built for preparation and execution. Weapons are neatly arranged, each piece ready for immediate use. It is a place where missions begin and, more often than not, where lives end. As she stands there, her thoughts drift back to her brother. She wonders what kind of situation he has pulled her into this time, holding on to a fragile hope that he will somehow reach out to her again. Her thoughts are interrupted by a call from Logan. He checks in on her. Asking about her situation, she reassures him that everything appears calm, though the silence feels unnatural, almost too perfect. Then she raises a concern that has been bothering her. She asks whether Yansong Yu is truly part of Valentine's Day, pointing out that he was not wearing the organization's badge. Logan hesitates. Instead of giving a direct answer, he brings up someone named Lu and reminds her to stay alert. Before she can fully process this, a man suddenly appears in front of her. Instinctively, she reaches for her gun and aims it at him. The man calmly introduces himself as Edward Lu, claiming to be from the United States. Logan, still on the line, reminds her that he had already warned her about Lu's presence. Realizing the situation, Hannah abruptly ends the call. She demands to know why he is there. With a playful tone, he suggests that he thought she might be bored. When she presses further, his expression shifts slightly as he admits he has his own business in Cambodia. He explains that he is investigating Mesa, a powerful criminal syndicate operating in the region. According to him, Mesa is not just a drug cartel. They are deeply entangled with the Sicilian mafia, having stolen goods from Julio Parenti and committed a murder tied to his organization. Hannah, still uncertain about Yansong's role in all of this, makes it clear that she will not tolerate interference. Lu assures her that he has no intention of disrupting her mission. He proposes that they stick to a simple arrangement. She focuses on Julio Parenti, while he handles Mesa. Despite his calm demeanor, her suspicion does not fade. She suddenly grabs his shirt, accusing him of not being a Valentine's Day agent. Lu chuckles and clarifies that he never claimed to be one. He only offered to help. Before the tension can escalate further, her phone rings again. It is Logan. His tone is more serious this time. He informs her that Mesa is on the move and will reach a specific location in 3 hours. He describes a heavily armed convoy, consisting of around 40 men moving with a trailer, 2 shipping containers and several trucks. To make matters worse, Julio Parenti is already aware of their movement and is pursuing them. The situation is rapidly escalating, and Hannah is left with a single question. Can she handle what is coming? About an hour later, she and Yansong finalize their plan. Hannah explains that she intends to infiltrate the trailer during the chaos. She will target the tires of the leading truck to disrupt a convoy, but she makes it clear that she has no intention of holding them off until Parenti arrives. Instead, she outlines a precise strategy. First, she will detonate a landmine when Mesa appears. Second, she will use the confusion to sneak into the trailer. Finally, she will wait for Parenti to arrive, positioning herself at the center of the conflict. She emphasizes that she will use minimal force, creating just enough disruption to achieve her objective. Yansong listens carefully, then quietly tells her to be careful. There is a hint of sincerity in his voice as he admits that he has started to care about her more than he expected. Hannah does not respond to that. Instead, she prepares for the operation. As they begin tracking their targets, Yansong confirms that Parenti is indeed among them. The countdown begins. When the moment comes, Hannah triggers the first step of the plan. The explosion disrupts the convoy, throwing everything into chaos. Without hesitation, she moves in, scaling the trailer and slipping inside. The moment she lands, she opens fire. The confined space turns into a battleground. One of the men nearly overpowers her, but Yansong intervenes at the last second, neutralizing the threat. She acknowledges his help briefly, but there is no time to dwell on it. While they wait for the next development, Yansong provides updates. The convoy is moving at high speed, and a major collision seems inevitable. As Hannah navigates the interior of the trailer, she overhears a man speaking on the phone. He sounds frustrated, saying he never wanted Parenti's goods and regrets getting involved in the deal. Suddenly, everything shifts. A violent crash shakes the entire trailer. Hannah loses her balance and is thrown off her feet. Her vision blurs as the world spins around her. Yansong calls out to her repeatedly, but she struggles to respond. Slowly, she regains consciousness, her body trembling. She removes her earpiece and steadies herself, raising her weapon. At that moment, the trailer door opens. A man steps inside. She immediately aims her gun at him and warns him to stay back. Instead of retreating, the man calmly walks toward her. He takes her gun and presses it against his own forehead, daring her to pull the trigger. His voice is disturbingly calm as he admits that he has been waiting for death. Before she can react, he strikes her with brutal force. Darkness overtakes her as she loses consciousness. As he lifts her, he remarks that they will take her along and decide later whether she is of any use. When Hannah regains consciousness, she immediately realizes that her hands are bound. Panic surges through her, and she begins struggling against the restraints. The man notices and comments on her quick recovery. As she looks up, her breath catches. Standing before her is none other than Julio Parenti. He studies her with interest, asking who she is and whether she had been waiting for him in the trailer. She confirms it, but instead of answering directly, she throws him off balance with an unexpected remark, suggesting that he should remove his clothes because she cannot leave in her current state. His expression hardens instantly. He grabs her chin, accusing her of trying to manipulate him and questioning whether she thinks she will leave alive. Unfazed, she meets his gaze and tells him that he will soon find himself needing her help. In response, he forcefully pushes his fingers into her mouth, warning her to be careful about what she asks for. He leans in closer, asserting dominance, but before the situation escalates further, another man bursts into the room demanding to know why Julio has not killed her yet. Julio attempts to explain, saying that she admitted she came to kill him, but has been behaving strangely ever since. The newcomer reacts with disbelief but quickly falls silent under Giulio's intense gaze. Meanwhile, Hannah, unable to fully understand their conversation in Italian, senses an opportunity. Carefully and quietly, she begins cutting the rope binding her hands. The second man steps forward, drawing a gun and declaring that he will finish the job himself. As he approaches, Hannah makes her move. In a swift and decisive action, she overpowers him, takes his weapon, and wraps the rope around his neck. She points the gun at him and warns Julio not to come any closer. Her voice is steady as she declares that she came here for one purpose, and nothing will stop her. Julio raises his hands slightly, signaling that he understands the situation and asks what she wants. She is not here to kill him, at least not yet. She needs his help. Someone has been impersonating him, and she intends to find out who. She tightens the rope around the man's neck, forcing him to cry out in pain. Julio realizes that the situation has shifted. For the moment, he has no choice but to listen. He looks at her carefully and asks what exactly she wants from him. Hannah's answer is unwavering. She tells Julio that she needs his help, and in return she will deliver the person who has been impersonating him. It is a bold proposal, one built on mutual benefit rather than trust. Elsewhere, at the crash site, the police have already arrived. One of the officers approaches Yan Song and asks what should be done with the bodies scattered across the scene. Without hesitation, Yan Song slips money into the officer's hand and calmly instructs him to handle the situation however he sees fit. He emphasizes that the dead men were criminals and suggests that the police can take full credit for eliminating them. With that, the matter is quietly settled. Meanwhile, it becomes clear that Julio Parenti and his men have already escaped, taking with them the weapons crate and the trailer loaded with cocaine. As Yan Song moves to complete his final task, wiping data from one of the dead men's phones, an unexpected presence interrupts him. Tai Jun appears. Yan Song glances at him and remarks casually that he has not seen him since Hannah dealt with him earlier. Then, without warning, he draws a gun and points it directly at him. His tone remains calm, but his question is sharp. Why did Tai Jun fail to mention that Hannah and her brother are twins? Tai Jun answers cautiously, claiming that he did not consider it important. Yan Song does not seem convinced. He cocks the gun, making his intent clear. He wants detailed information about Hannah Lee. Under pressure, Tai Jun explains that Hannah has been living as a civilian and that her brother is the only family she has left. That is why she cannot abandon him and has come all this way. Yan Song listens, then replies that such decisions are not Tai Jun's to make. Still holding him at gunpoint, he warns him to become more useful if he wishes to avoid serious consequences. Then, just as suddenly, he lowers the weapon and begins to walk away. Before he can leave, Tai Jun asks a pointed question. Is he interested in Hannah? Yan Song pauses briefly and answers with a faint smile. He admits that she is indeed an intriguing woman, which is precisely why he is reconsidering his plans. Meanwhile, back at Julio's location, the tension continues to build. Julio questions Hannah again, asking how she plans to catch the imposter now that the Mesa group has already been eliminated by a sniper. To him, it seems like a lost opportunity. Hannah, frustrated, admits that she had hoped to interrogate them. Still, she refuses to give up. She explains that her brother had been tracking the imposter, and if they work together, they can still uncover the mastermind behind everything. She then reveals something more personal. There is a rumor that Julio ordered the assassination of a Korean intelligence agent. That agent is her brother. Julio's expression shifts slightly as he asks if that means her brother is already dead. Hannah immediately denies it. She insists that he is still alive, and that is exactly why she came to find Julio to confirm whether he was responsible. Privately, she understands that gaining his trust is essential. Without it, her mission will fail. In a surprising gesture, Julio begins to unbutton his shirt and offers it to her as a sign of goodwill. He then orders one of his men, Romano, to bring her a glass of wine, suggesting that she release Lorenzo in exchange. Though suspicious, Hannah considers the situation carefully. She is exhausted, dehydrated, and aware that refusing outright could undermine her position. Reluctantly, she accepts. She kicks Lorenzo aside, takes the glass, and drinks it while keeping her eyes locked on Julio. Almost immediately, dizziness overtakes her. Her body weakens, and she collapses to the ground. However, this is not the end for her. Julio had already anticipated this outcome. A doctor is summoned, and he orders that she receive full medical attention, leaving nothing to chance. Later, Hannah finds herself trapped in a vivid nightmare. In it, she hears a chilling promise of revenge directed at her. The intensity of the dream jolts her awake. Disoriented, she slowly realizes that her wounds have been treated. It becomes clear that she had been given sleeping pills. As she steadies herself, the memory behind the nightmare resurfaces. It traces back to her time as an operative with Valentine's Day. During one mission, a man was imprisoned because of her actions. While he was behind bars, his enemies hunted down and brutally killed his entire family. Before disappearing, he had sworn revenge against her. At the time, she dismissed his threats without concern. But as days passed, unease began to creep in. She found herself checking on her brother constantly, fearing that the man might act on his promise. Eventually, she heard that he had been killed in a separate act of vengeance. Instead of relief mixed with guilt, she felt only relief. That realization disturbed her deeply. It marked a moment where something inside her shifted, a loss of innocence she could never reclaim. Shaking off the memory, Hannah refocuses. Her brother is still out there, and she cannot afford distractions. Her immediate concern becomes something far more basic. She needs food and strength before she can move forward. She rises from the bed, reflecting briefly on her situation. She had expected Julio to be dangerous, but not unpredictable to this extent. She still cannot understand why he is keeping her alive. It is clear that he has not accepted her proposal, at least not yet. As she opens the door, she suddenly bumps into Lorenzo, the same man she had restrained earlier. She quickly apologizes, attempting to soften the tension between them. Lorenzo, however, remains cold. He orders her back into her room and warns her not to try anything. Hannah adopts a calmer approach, assuring him that she intends to cooperate. She simply asks for something to eat, pointing out that she has not eaten all day. After a moment of hesitation, Lorenzo admits that their supplies are limited, but eventually allows her to follow him. As he turns away, he discreetly activates a hidden microphone, connecting it to Julio so he can listen in. While they walk, Lorenzo studies her carefully. Suspicion lingers in his voice as he asks whether she is an assassin, or perhaps even a North Korean spy. Hannah calmly denies Lorenzo's assumptions. She explains that she once served in the South Korean Special Forces, but now lives as what she jokingly calls a beksu, an unemployed civilian. Her tone is casual, but the truth behind it carries weight. On the other end of the hidden microphone, Julio listens in silence, lighting a cigarette as he absorbs every word. Outside, heavy rain begins to pour and several cars pull into the compound. Lorenzo, shifting into a more hospitable mood, invites Hannah to sit and eat. The table before her is filled with carefully prepared dishes, far more refined than she expected. For a moment, her hardened demeanor softens, genuine surprise crossing her face. Curiosity gets the better of her, and she asks if he used to be a chef. Lorenzo smiles and admits that cooking is simply a hobby he takes pride in. With playful menace, he warns her that if she does not start eating, he might take the food away. That is enough to convince her. As she tastes the meal, she cannot hide her reaction. It is exceptional. For a brief moment, she forgets that he is a man who carries a gun and works for the mafia. As the conversation continues, she casually brings up a name she heard earlier, one that sounds distinctly Korean. She asks about the person, wondering aloud if they are connected to the mafia or perhaps even close to Julio. Lorenzo's expression shifts slightly. He explains that the individual is a colleague and quickly warns her never to mention that name in front of Julio. Some boundaries, he makes clear, should never be crossed. Seizing the opportunity, Hannah redirects the conversation toward her brother. She asks if Lorenzo knows anything about his whereabouts. Instead of answering directly, Lorenzo turns the question back on her. Then, with a more serious tone, he explains that Julio Parenti is not the type of man to keep hostages. He finds it inefficient and troublesome. If someone becomes a problem, he eliminates them. The implication is clear, and it unsettles her. Still, she presses further, asking whether Julio has any intention of going after the imposter. Lorenzo sighs and explains that in their world, imposters are everywhere, as common as everyday dangers. From this, Hannah begins to suspect that Julio may not truly care about the impersonator. His cooperation might be nothing more than a performance. Realizing that even the intelligence service believes her brother betrayed them, she understands that time is not on her side. If she wants the truth, she needs to stay longer and gather evidence herself. As they finish eating and begin to walk back, Lorenzo, unable to resist his curiosity, asks if she works for the FBI. The question makes him regret asking almost immediately, but Hannah simply smiles and tells him she does not mind being questioned. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted when Julio appears. With a teasing tone, he remarks that they seem to have grown close, as if they are on a date. Lorenzo quickly dismisses the idea, reminding him that she had tried to kill him earlier and joking that she does not match his taste. Hannah responds just as quickly, stating that Lorenzo is not her type either. Julio's attention shifts. He notices that she is still wearing his shirt and tells her to change. As they are about to attend a funeral, under the steady rain, they step outside with umbrellas and travel together to pay their respects to a fallen associate. The atmosphere is heavy with grief. Some mourn quietly, while others weep openly. Standing among them, Hannah softly recites a prayer in Korean. Julio glances at her, asking about it. She explains that it is a funeral prayer meant to guide the departed soul toward peace and release. After the service, they sit down for a meal. Despite the calm setting, Hannah's focus remains sharp. She knows she must keep Julio interested if she wants to survive and achieve her goal. Carefully, she invites him to ask whatever he wants about her. Julio leans forward, his gaze fixed on hers, and asks her directly what she wants from him. Hannah pauses, then admits she has many desires. He challenges her to narrow them down to 3. With a faint smile, she asks if he will grant them. He replies that it depends. She begins listing them. First, she wants his help in finding her brother. Second, she wants to identify those who targeted him. And third, she asks for something surprisingly simple, a proper meal for herself. For a moment, Julio seems taken aback. He questions whether she was not already fed earlier, but instead of arguing, he orders everyone else to leave, ensuring that they are alone. Then his demeanor shifts. Leaning closer, his voice lowers, carrying a strange mix of curiosity and danger. He admits that the more he thinks about it, the stranger she becomes. Despite all his resources, he has found nothing about her. It is as if she does not exist. That, more than anything, intrigues him. He warns her that handling dangerous, defiant people like her is something he excels at. As he speaks, his hand moves to her neck, gripping it firmly. The gesture is both controlling and unsettling. It is a reminder of how unstable he truly is. Hannah forces herself to remain composed. She asks if he destroys those he manages to control. Julio's eyes darken as he considers the question. The implication is clear. Submission does not guarantee survival. Then he shifts the conversation again. He reveals that her bag was found near the crash site. Inside it was a video showing her brother alongside a man named Gavin Smith. Julio asks how she is connected to him. The name hits her like a shock. As she replays the memory, she realizes something she had overlooked. There was a man following her brother, someone with a noticeable limp. The footage now makes sense. That man was Gavin Smith. Smith was once one of the FBI's top agents, a man deeply involved in violent conflicts with the Russian mafia. At one point, he even plotted to kill Julio himself before disappearing. Now, he has resurfaced alongside her brother. Julio's suspicion deepens. He points out that he trusts no one, not even those closest to him, yet somehow her brother has become involved with a man who once sought his life. To him, it looks like betrayal. Hannah immediately rejects that idea. She insists that Smith was protecting her brother, not working against him. Her emotions break through as she grabs a knife from the table and presses it against Julio's neck, just enough to draw blood. She declares that, like him, she values family above all else and will do anything to protect her brother. Julio does not flinch. Instead, he watches her with growing fascination. He asks why he should trust her at all. After a moment, Hannah makes a decision. She reveals the truth. Her name is Hannah Lee. She is a mercenary formerly affiliated with Valentine's Day. She even gives him her alias, knowing it might mean nothing to him. The effect is immediate. Julio's interest sharpens. Without warning, he pulls her closer and kisses her, his behavior as unpredictable as ever. The moment is intense, disorienting, and dangerous. Hannah reacts instantly. She drives the knife into him. Even then, he does not panic. Instead, he dares her to push it deeper, almost as if inviting the pain. There is something deeply unsettling in the way he responds, a fascination that borders on obsession. She shoves him away, making it clear that she is not there to kill him. Not yet. In the next moment, she finds herself restrained, handcuffs locked around her wrists. She sighs, asking if he plans to remove them. Julio calmly replies that he knows she could escape them if she wanted to, but it is better for her to keep them on. As a doctor stitches the wound she inflicted, Julio leans closer and tells her that explaining his plans would be pointless if she chooses to escape. Hearing this, Hannah begins to reassess everything. She had assumed he was just another mob boss, someone she could manipulate with calculated moves. But now, it is clear that she misjudged him entirely. He is far more unpredictable, far more dangerous, and far more complex than she anticipated. Hannah's curiosity pushes her to ask about Gavin Smith's whereabouts. Julio calmly tells her that if Smith truly wanted to find him, he easily could. She presses further, demanding to know why Smith wants Julio dead so badly. Casually scratching his neck, Julio reveals the truth. He killed Smith's younger brother. For a moment, Hannah feels her emotions flare, but she quickly reminds herself not to react. Julio is clearly trying to provoke her. Keeping her composure, she asks when he plans to release her. Julio bluntly replies that it will happen only when he believes he can trust her. Until then, she remains his hostage, though he prefers the word prisoner, someone he can dispose of whenever he chooses. Left alone with her thoughts, Hannah realizes she cannot stay trapped forever. She studies the two guards outside and begins planning a possible escape. Assuming they are unarmed, she considers taking them down and fleeing through the window. However, before she can think any further, she suddenly feels the cold barrel of a gun press against her head. A dark voice warns her not to entertain thoughts of escaping and orders her back into her room. The man assures her they will treat her respectfully as long as she behaves. Elsewhere, Julio searches through Hannah's belongings. When he picks up her driver's license, he finally learns her name. Smirking faintly, he admits he has heard stories about her. Hannah Lee is known as a legendary agent. The first time he saw her, covered in blood with madness burning in her eyes, he genuinely believed she was the Grim Reaper sent to kill him. Oddly enough, he confesses that part of him almost wanted her to pull the trigger. Soon after, Romano enters the office with new information. Julio orders him to locate Logan Valentine's contact details. When Romano questions why, Julio explains that Hannah once worked for Valentine. He then coldly states that there are many people they still need to find, and many others they need to eliminate. Meanwhile, Hannah remains locked in the bedroom. Hours pass, then an entire day. No one answers her desperate calls for help, and anxiety slowly begins eating away at her. On top of everything else, she desperately needs to use the bathroom. At last, the bedroom door creaks open and Julio walks inside with a smug grin. He checks on her condition and remarks that she seems fine. Hannah quickly promises that she has no intention of running away and begs him to remove the cuffs because she urgently needs the bathroom. Julio slowly leans closer, his gaze sharpening dangerously as he whispers that she is driving him insane. A few minutes later, after leaving the bathroom, Hannah realizes her pants are gone. She bluntly accuses Julio of removing them and demands that he help her put them back on. Instead of answering directly, Julio raises an eyebrow and asks whether she washed her hands. Hannah angrily points out that such a thing is impossible while handcuffed. Julio calmly replies that there is an easy solution. Standing behind her, he gently helps her wash her hands. The strange intimacy leaves Hannah deeply unsettled. Then Julio teasingly asks if there are any other parts of her body that need cleaning. His flirtatious tone makes her flinch instantly. She snaps at him for being shamelessly horny and firmly declares that no amount of smooth talking will ever convince her to sleep with him because her life is far too valuable. Julio counters immediately, saying the same argument should apply to him considering she tried to stab him while they were kissing. Hannah fires back that he strangled her first and even reveals the scars left on her body as proof. The tension between them explodes. Hannah abruptly stands to leave, but Julio suddenly lunges forward and throws her onto the bed. Teasing her, he promises a surprise if she behaves. Then he reveals her phone. The sight of it instantly grabs Hannah's attention. She immediately wonders if there is finally a message from her brother. Desperate, she tries to snatch the phone away, but Julio smoothly slips it back into his pocket and warns her to cooperate. Realizing force will not work, Hannah changes tactics. She begins kissing and caressing Julio in an attempt to distract him and steal the phone. Julio stands silently for several moments before finally tossing her the key to her handcuffs. He orders her to get dressed and follow him downstairs, because they have guests waiting, guests who may play an important role in securing her freedom. As they head downstairs together, Hannah desperately begs for just one look at the message on her phone. Julio mocks her impatience and teasingly threatens to take the phone away again. On the way down, Hannah nervously points out that people might misunderstand their current appearance together. Sure enough, the moment they encounter others, the teasing begins. Their acquaintances jokingly ask why Hannah is clinging so closely to Julio. Smiling awkwardly, Hannah sarcastically explains that she is currently his captive. Julio casually replies that allowing her to roam freely would put his men's lives in danger. Hannah then notices Logan and demands to know why everyone is gathered there. Logan explains that Mr. Parenti contacted them the previous day out of concern for her safety. Hannah proudly boasts that she fought back fiercely and even stabbed Julio in the shoulder. Without wasting time, Julio directly asks Logan whether Hannah Lee is the infamous agent once known as One. Logan confirms that she once used the alias but insists she no longer works for the FBI. Parenti then assigns Valentine and Yansong to guard Hannah. Yansong volunteers immediately, but Hannah angrily objects. Snatching Julio's drink from his hand, she insists that this situation is her problem and that no one else should be dragged into it. Julio calmly reaches for the glass, only for Hannah to smash it onto the floor. The shattered glass convinces him even further that involving his men is dangerous, because unlike him, they actually value their lives. Turning toward Yansong, Julio casually asks for his name before officially hiring him and pouring him a drink with a sly smile. He watches closely as Yansong downs it in one gulp. Later, Hannah finally experiences relief when her handcuffs are removed and her belongings are returned. Remembering Julio's warning about obeying her guard, she cannot help feeling irritated by how unbearable he is. Ignoring her frustration, she quickly checks the phone, hoping to find a message from her brother. Instead, she discovers a bizarre photo showing only his feet. Confused, she wonders if he accidentally photographed the floor. Curious, she begins sketching the strange pattern she sees. Before long, she realizes the floor design is unusual. As she studies it carefully, Yansong enters the room and glances at the image. Surprisingly, he immediately identifies it as belonging to Mun Shipping Company. Shocked, Hannah asks how he recognized the location from nothing but the floor. Yansong explains that he was not looking at the floor pattern at all. He recognized the company logo hidden within the image. If the photo is genuine, then Hannah's brother may currently be trapped aboard one of Mun Shipping's vessels. Yansong gently lifts Hannah's chin and admits he honestly was not sure she would survive once Julio Parenti saw her. Confused, Hannah asks what he means. Yansong explains that women like her are dangerous triggers for men in the mafia world. He reveals that Julio is the eldest son of the Parenti family and once had ties to the GIS. Now, he runs illegal drug operations from his mansion in Sicily. He is particularly sensitive toward women with black hair because they remind him of his mother. He also harbors deep hatred for the Red Mafia, especially since the Asian woman who married the Red Mafia boss was once Julio's lover. The moment Yansong mentions the name Sejang, Hannah freezes. Lorenzo once warned her never to mention that name in Julio's presence. The Mafia had practically treated it like a death sentence. Yansong then reveals that Julio has been invited to a luxurious yacht party hosted by Moon Shipping. Believing the company's CEO, Muin Kong, will attend, Hannah rushes to find Julio by the pool. Desperately, she begs him to take her along. She believes her brother is currently hunting Ween Kong, possibly because Kong has been impersonating Parenti. Hannah hurriedly explains everything she knows, hoping Julio will finally listen. Instead, Julio coldly dismisses her and orders her back to her room. He explains that this is not an event she can simply attend. Growing desperate, Hannah grabs him and boldly claims she knows who has been impersonating him and can catch the culprit herself. Julio remains completely unmoved. Calmly, he reveals that he already knows the impersonator's identity and questions whether she truly believes she knows more than he does. Furious, Hannah demands to know why he kept this information hidden from her. Julio coldly asks why she expects him to report everything to her. Switching angrily into Korean, Hannah accuses him of deceiving her and wonders if this is revenge for the day she stabbed him. Julio responds in Italian before calmly telling her to speak English. However, Hannah refuses to back down. She continues speaking in Korean, challenging Julio's authority and demanding that he stop speaking Italian as well. Julio tells her she is getting too emotional, but Hannah suddenly grabs him and warns that if Larson harms her brother in any way, she will take revenge starting with the Italian mafia itself. In her eyes, Julio Parenti is responsible for dragging her brother into this nightmare. Fueled by frustration, she shoves him backward into the pool and angrily tells him to get out of her sight. But Julio instantly grabs her hand, pulling her down with him into the water. Underwater, the tension between them changes completely. Julio gently caresses her before kissing her. Hannah cannot understand why he keeps behaving this way. Part of her wonders if he is projecting the pain and frustrations of his previous relationship onto her. Suddenly, Julio notices her body going limp beneath the water. Alarmed, he quickly pulls her back to the surface. The moment Hannah opens her eyes, she notices the panic on his face and asks why he looks so upset. Julio coldly replies that she crossed the line. Hannah sarcastically tells him he should check himself into a hospital because he clearly keeps confusing her with someone else. At that exact moment, Yansong arrives and calls out her name. Kneeling beside her, he admits he cannot believe she disappeared after claiming she was only going to change clothes. When Hannah asks whether he was searching for her, Yansong casually admits that he missed her. Julio suddenly wraps an arm around Hannah and asks if she truly wants to attend the party. If she does, then she should go as his date. According to him, that would give her the freedom she needs while also protecting her. Very few people would dare challenge the woman standing beside Julio Parenti. Excited by the sudden opportunity, Hannah immediately asks whether this means he is actually taking her to the party. Julio confirms it, though he casually adds that he is not feeling well and expects her assistance in return since he is doing her a favor. Hannah stares at him in disbelief, shocked that someone like Julio could actually get sick. Meanwhile, Yansong quietly watches the exchange before choosing to leave them alone. Julio informs Hannah that they will depart tomorrow and tells her to prepare herself. When she asks where they are going, he dryly reminds her that she wanted to attend a party. He then glances at her appearance and remarks that he hopes she is not planning to show up looking like that. The next day, Julio takes Hannah shopping in preparation for the event. Hannah immediately picks out a skirt and top she likes, but clothing is not her real concern. What she truly needs is an outfit capable of hiding weapons while still allowing quick access to them. As she examines the clothes, Julio suddenly appears behind her and whispers that she would look better attending the party naked. Hannah instantly fires back, telling him he already knows she has an incredible body and would look amazing in anything. She also grabs a pair of heels, but Julio quickly rushes her along despite her complaints that she is not finished shopping. He firmly informs her that she will absolutely not be wearing any of the ridiculous outfits she picked out. Hannah smugly replies that anything she wears automatically looks expensive anyway. Soon after, she asks Julio if he wants coffee. He agrees, though only if they drink espresso. Inside the cafe, Julio's expression grows more serious. He tells Hannah that although everything may seem playful right now, she needs to tell him exactly what she wants from him. Hannah notices that he is being unusually lenient with her, so she realizes she must take advantage of the situation because she genuinely needs his help. Julio then points out something he noticed earlier. Hannah does not seem afraid of him at all. Hannah calmly asks why she should be scared. She then mentions growing up in an orphanage, which leads Julio to ask whether her parents died when she was young. Hannah quietly reveals that she never had parents in the first place. She and her twin brother were born in a motel room, abandoned by the woman who gave birth to them because she could not bring herself to kill them. Since that day, her brother has been the most precious person in her life. Julio comments that her relationship with her brother is completely different from his relationship with his own siblings, who are constantly looking for opportunities to betray or kill one another. A short while later, Julio suddenly stands up and announces that everything has already been prepared for her, including dresses, shoes, accessories, and anything else she may need. Confused, Hannah asks what they have been doing this entire time, if not shopping. Julio smirks and explains that he never said they were shopping. He only asked whether she intended to attend the party looking like a mess. Annoyed, Hannah asks why he spent the entire day silently following her around. Julio casually admits that he found it entertaining and wanted some fresh air. Looking directly at her, he adds that she also seemed like she was having fun. Elsewhere, Yan Song quietly speaks on the phone while secretly searching through Hannah's belongings. He admits to the caller that the operation he started has become far more complicated than expected. He also mentions someone recklessly using Julio Parenti's name. Before ending the call, he promises to investigate further. As he thinks things over, one question continues bothering him. Did Hannah take the flip phone with her? From what he observed, she appeared to be using it to track her brother's location. Just then, Hannah suddenly walks into the room and catches him standing near her belongings. Suspicious, she asks whether he had been patiently waiting for her return or snooping around for more sinister reasons. Yansong gently strokes her hair and calmly assures her that he was only waiting for her. Curious, he then asks about her recent interaction with Julio and subtly tries to gauge how interested she is in a mafia boss. Caught off guard, Hannah immediately asks if Julio is Yansong's actual target and whether that is the real reason he volunteered to become her bodyguard. Yansong attempts to avoid the accusation by claiming he is simply worried about her reckless behavior. He reminds her that he has romantic feelings for her and proposes an alliance between them. According to him, working with a fellow mercenary is far safer than trusting dangerous mobsters. Hannah quickly challenges his argument. She points out that mercenaries are hardly better than the mafia, considering they also kill, steal, and betray people. Yansong responds that at least mercenaries do not treat people like trophies. He calls Julio a fraud and predicts that once Julio gets what he wants, he will discard Hannah without hesitation. Hannah then reveals the painful truth about her brother's betrayal by his own agency and how nobody ever came to rescue her. With bitterness in her voice, she admits she no longer knows who she can trust. At the same time, Yansong's overwhelming knowledge about everything around her makes her deeply uneasy. To test him further, Hannah asks whether he knows Mujin Kong. Yansong calmly replies that he does, but he wants something in exchange for the information. Determined, Hannah grabs his shoulders and promises to save his life one day, but she also sternly warns him never to search through her belongings again. Above all else, she makes it clear that she does not trust him. Later that evening, Hannah and Julio share a tense dinner filled with heavy silence. Hannah eventually breaks the tension by boldly asking whether he poisoned the food. Completely unfazed, Julio simply tells her to taste it and find out for herself. Yansong then questions Julio about the true purpose behind gathering everyone together. Sensing the seriousness of the situation, he knows there must be more going on. Finally, Julio reveals that their current operation is nearly over and that they will soon leave for Macau. The moment Hannah hears this, she jumps to her feet and protests loudly. She reminds Julio that the entire reason she came to Cambodia was to find answers. Julio calmly tells her to relax before explaining that a cruise ship recently departed Cambodia for Macau, which also happens to be where the upcoming party will take place. Hannah suddenly realizes that her target may have already left the country. Julio explains that once everything in Macau is settled, he plans to return to Italy permanently. This means tonight may very well be their final dinner together. He calmly raises his glass and proposes a toast. Soon afterward, a car speeds through the streets toward its destination. Hannah steps out and approaches a building, while Yansong asks whether she will be fine on her own. Hannah tells him it should not take long, but after a brief pause, she adds that if she does not return within 10 minutes, he and Lorenzo should come stop her. Before leaving Cambodia, Hannah needs answers. The fact that her brother managed to hide himself so perfectly suggests that someone helped him. She suspects he may have been working undercover on an investigation involving both Julio Parenti and Nguyen Kong. There is only one final thing she needs to confirm. She quietly sneaks into Tai Zhang's house and catches him immediately after he finishes a phone call. Startled, he asks how long she has been standing there. Hannah coldly asks whether he is trying to run away. Calmly holding the weapon herself, she asks why he is acting so nervous if he has done nothing wrong. She reminds him that years ago she stabbed him in the back, yet he insists he never blamed her because she believed her brother was still alive at the time. He urges her to put the gun down so they can talk properly. Hannah refuses. She demands to know how much longer he plans to lie to her. According to her, her brother never had any connection to Julio Parenti, meaning the story about mobsters killing him was completely fabricated. When Tai Zhang asks how she discovered the truth, Hannah reveals that she already knows who the real imposter is, Nguyen Kong, the CEO of Mun Shipping Company. Pointing the gun directly at his head, she warns him that this is his final chance to tell the truth. She accuses him of betraying her brother. As always, Tai Zhang scratches his neck while speaking, insisting that Day was actually the traitor. Hannah immediately notices the habit and points out that he always scratches his neck whenever he lies. Finally, she lowers the gun slightly and tells him to run while he still can because the next time she pulls the trigger, she intends to kill him. At that moment, neighbors who heard the gunshot burst into the apartment to investigate. Chaos erupts as they try grabbing Hannah while Tai Zhang escapes. Outside, Lorenzo and Yansong grow increasingly worried and rush inside after hearing the commotion. When they finally find Hannah, she is sitting silently on the floor beside the body of a dead man. Hannah calmly tells Lorenzo and Yansong that they arrived too late. Meanwhile, Julio is in the middle of an important phone call. The caller explains that he tried investigating Ween Kong but found almost nothing. Even blurry photographs of the man are nearly impossible to obtain, as if the company is desperately hiding every trace of him. What makes the situation even stranger is that Ween Kong was never originally meant to inherit the company. He only stepped into power a few years earlier after his half-brother Mok Kong suddenly stepped down. The caller then changes the subject and brings up Hannah Lee. He jokingly refers to her as Julio's latest accessory, but quickly warns him to be careful. Hannah once hospitalized their friend Sorel for an entire month and nearly slit Carlos's throat. Julio calmly reassures him that he and Hannah are currently working toward the same goal. However, as the caller keeps pushing the conversation further, Julio abruptly ends the call. Not long after, Lorenzo brings Hannah back to the villa while shouting for a doctor. Even though Hannah insists her injury is only a scratch, quietly, she reflects on everything that happened. Deep down, she always suspected the truth, but she could not leave Cambodia without confirming it for herself. Even now, she struggles to believe that Tai Jank truly betrayed her brother. She wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt until the moment he ran away. Julio enters the room carrying a first aid kit and closes the door behind him. He reminds Hannah that she claimed she only needed an hour because she had somewhere to go. Then he sarcastically asks whether returning home covered in blood was part of her brilliant plan. Without hesitation, he prepares antibiotics and tells her he is about to administer a local anesthetic. As he carefully treats her injuries, he remarks that he does not enjoy seeing traces of other people on her. More specifically, he hates seeing her stained with the blood of dead men. While he works, Hannah quietly considers manipulating him even further. After finishing the treatment, Julio suddenly pushes one of his fingers into her mouth in an unexpectedly intimate gesture. He tells her that he will help her find her brother in Macau, but once she succeeds, she must immediately return to Korea. Hannah silently reflects on his words. Now that she knows Tai Jank betrayed her brother, the only tool she has left is Julio Parenti, the dangerous man who constantly hurts her yet cannot stand seeing her hurt by anyone else. Suddenly, the chair beneath her shifts. As she begins to fall, she instinctively grabs Julio for support. The moment sparks an intense kiss between them. Consumed by the tension, Julio lifts her onto the bed as they continue kissing passionately. Even in the middle of it all, Hannah's thoughts remain calculating. From now on, she plans to take even greater advantage of Julio. The only thing she cannot determine is whether he will become her lifeline or the rope that ultimately drags her into ruin. Elsewhere, Tai Jank frantically rushes around his apartment, stuffing belongings into a bag while desperately preparing to flee. Panic fills his mind as he wonders how someone managed to bypass his supposedly flawless security system without triggering a single alarm. Then he hears approaching footsteps. Instantly, Tai Jank grabs a hidden firearm, but the mysterious visitor coldly warns him not to run because doing so will only make things worse. Slowly turning around, Tai Jank freezes in shock when he recognizes the man standing before him. It is Julio Parenti. Julio calmly pulls out his own gun and points it directly at Tai Jank. He states that he has been hearing rumors about someone impersonating him. Tai Jank immediately denies everything, but Julio bluntly says that all the evidence points toward him. Sweat pours down Tai Jank's face as he desperately claims he knows who the real culprit is and begs for a chance to explain. Julio interrupts him without warning by firing a bullet into his leg. Coldly, he explains that he is simply in a bad mood. Back at the villa, Hannah wakes up and discovers Yansong sitting beside her bed. Irritated, she scolds him for barging into her room unannounced. Yansong calmly explains that he was worried she might suffer once the anesthesia wore off. Smiling softly, he reminds her that he is her bodyguard and intends to protect her properly. As he carefully examines her injury, he asks whether that was where she got hurt. Hannah reassures him that Julio already treated her wounds and even compliments his surprisingly good medical skills. Yansong agrees, admitting that Julio handled everything perfectly without even needing a doctor. The conversation briefly falls silent when Hannah mentions being thirsty. The two exchange lingering glances before Yansong quietly asks whether the mafia boss might actually have feelings for her. Caught off guard, Hannah sharply asks what he just said. Trying to brush it aside, Yansong hands her water and explains that Logan called while she was asleep. According to Logan, Valentine's organization will be assigning Mujin Kong a bodyguard during the upcoming party. Hearing this instantly reminds Hannah that Logan previously revealed Muin Kong was the real reason he came to the region in the first place. Yansong further explains that all Hannah needs to do during the event is locate a man named Oslo because Muin Kong will be standing beside him. The scene then shifts to Macau, where Julio and Hannah prepare for the party. Hannah sits in front of a mirror while Julio approaches from behind and plants soft kisses across her shoulders. Frowning slightly, Hannah accuses him of taking things too far. Innocently, Julio asks what exactly he did wrong before questioning whether she is ready to leave. Hannah immediately complains about sharing the same room with him. insisting it is a terrible idea considering the tension between them. Julio calmly explains that they must share a room because she is pretending to be his partner, and people will constantly be watching them. Pushing his hand away, Hannah asks him to zip up her dress. While doing so, Julio kisses her back again. She quickly reminds him that they do not have time for distractions because they need to attend the party. Julio admits that he has no interest in going at all, but if they must attend, he wants her looking irresistible enough to draw everyone's attention. Confused, Hannah asks whether all this seduction is truly necessary. Julio assures her that it is. In games like these, the person who wrongly believes they hold the advantage is always the first one to make a move. Julio smiles and confirms it. He leans in to kiss her once more, while Hannah quietly loses herself in thought. Recently, Julio has become far more physical with her, almost as if he no longer feels the need to test or evaluate her intentions. Hannah wonders whether she should continue playing along because if he becomes too emotionally invested, he may eventually lower his guard. Suddenly, a knock sounds at the door. Although Hannah looks surprised, Julio calmly says her equipment must have arrived. He hands her a box and tells her to open it. Inside, Hannah discovers top-quality gear. There is a bracelet filled with sedatives, a necklace containing a miniature bomb, and even sharpened hairpins designed for stabbing people. Clearly impressed, she quickly tries everything on and asks Julio what he thinks. He compliments her appearance immediately. Hannah then asks about the cruise ship they are supposed to board. Julio reveals that the ship currently docked nearby is only a fake display vessel, and that tonight's event is merely a pre-party before the real gathering tomorrow. Extending his hand like a gentleman, Julio helps Hannah to her feet, and together they leave for the party. The event is enormous. Fireworks explode overhead while crowds of wealthy guests fill the massive venue. Looking around in awe, Hannah realizes she has finally arrived at the place connected to her brother's disappearance. Even if he is not on this ship tonight, he should be aboard the cruise ship tomorrow. As they walk through the crowd, Hannah quietly admits that the party is far bigger than she expected, and that everyone keeps staring at them. Julio smoothly tells her they are only staring because she looks beautiful when she is aroused. Flustered, Hannah denies being aroused at all. Julio teasingly points out that her ears and cheeks are turning delightfully red. Before she can respond, someone suddenly calls Julio's name. Hannah immediately recognizes the elegant woman standing before them. It is Se Jiang, the wife of the infamous Red Mafia boss, and Giulio Parenti's former lover. Standing beside her is Yuri Petrov, a high-ranking member of the Red Mafia, and the chief financial officer of Petro Corporation. Se Jiang warmly greets Hannah and casually refers to her as one, instantly making Hannah suspicious about how much this woman already knows about her. As Julio pulls Hannah closer, she quietly whispers to him, hoping he did not bring her here simply to provoke his former lover. Julio calmly asks whether that is truly how it looks. Amid the tense reunion, Hannah suddenly spots another familiar face. The last time she saw him was years ago when she put him in the hospital. Only now does she remember that he serves as Petrov's right-hand man. Se Jiang gently asks whether Hannah is Korean and compliments her beauty. Soon after, Julio and Petrov excuse themselves for a private conversation, leaving the women behind. Before leaving, Julio orders Hannah to stay exactly where she is until he returns. At the same time, Petrov assigns Sorel to guard Sejang while they are gone. Left alone, Hannah immediately turns her attention toward Yansong, who has been assisting with security sweeps across the ship. Hannah asks Yansong where he has been, and he explains that he has been assisting with the ship's security sweep. Before the conversation can continue, Sejang suddenly steps closer and fixes Hannah with a stern expression. She suggests they move indoors where the air conditioning is better and casually remarks that standing outside is dangerous because the surrounding skyscrapers provide perfect cover for snipers. Her comment immediately unsettles Hannah, especially when C calmly reveals that Mu Jin Kong will not be appearing tonight. Shocked, Hannah presses her for answers, but C warns her not to trust anyone no matter what they claim. Then C reveals something even more surprising. She explains that she personally designed the bracelet Hannah is wearing. Although it contains sedatives, it also hides a secret stimulant and antidote capsule that can be activated by rotating the blue diamond 90 degrees. C quietly admits that she never told Julio about this feature, but she is choosing to entrust the information to Hannah because she genuinely likes her. Hannah cannot help being fascinated by C's mysterious charm. For a moment, she understands why Julio once fell for her so deeply. Curious, Hannah asks why Se is helping her. Se responds by saying that Hannah reminds her of her younger self. She advises Hannah to trust her instincts because the Mujin Kong appearing tonight is most likely an imposter. When Hannah asks about the real Mujin Kong, Se suggests he may be hiding in the shadows, possibly even arranging for his own stand-in to die in his place. Their conversation abruptly ends when both women sense another presence nearby, Gavin Smith. Reacting instantly, Hannah orders Se to sit down and call for additional guards. She tells Yansong to move to the opposite side of the venue, and block all possible escape routes. To keep him occupied, she even gives him a fake description of the target. All the waiters at the party are wearing black bow ties, and Hannah hopes the detail will buy her enough time to move unnoticed. As she chases after Gavin Smith through the crowded venue, he suddenly disappears without a trace. Before she can react, an unknown assailant violently slams into her and declares that she will never understand how long he has waited for this moment. Terrified, Hannah immediately recognizes him, Kuz Miney. Her voice trembles as she reminds him that tonight is supposed to be a truce, but Kuz coldly replies that he only came to kill her. Without hesitation, he smashes her against a wall and wraps his hand around her throat, determined to make her suffer the same pain he once endured. Struggling for breath, Hannah bitterly mutters that karma really does come around eventually. Dizziness clouds her vision as she desperately fights back. Then, in the middle of the struggle, she suddenly remembers Julio's promise to help her find her brother. That thought reignites her determination. Refusing to die there, Hannah gathers all her remaining strength and strikes Kuz hard enough to force him backward. In one swift movement, she pulls out a hidden dagger and drives it into his hand before overpowering him completely. Even after winning the fight, Julio remains on her mind. Hannah hesitates, wondering whether she should continue searching for Gavin Smith or return to Julio. The thought that Julio may already be searching for her makes her reconsider her next move. Then her eyes land on a familiar figure. A plan immediately forms in her mind. Hannah intentionally crashes into a waiter, spilling drinks all over herself. The man standing beside Oslo politely offers her a handkerchief, but the moment Oslo sees her face, recognition flashes across his expression. The man beside him asks whether she is Korean and introduces himself as the owner of the ship. Taking advantage of the moment, Hannah lightly touches his chest and playfully suggests that fate must have brought them together. She invents a story about a strange man harassing her and asks whether he can hide her somewhere private for a while. Intrigued, the man quickly agrees and leads her away from the crowd. Although Hannah politely worries that she may be troubling him, he casually admits that the party had already become boring anyway. He then mentions a private room on the second floor. Remembering Sejang's warning that this man may only be a decoy, Hannah remains cautious. Even if he is not the real Mu Jin Kong, he may still lead her to him. Meanwhile, Gavin Smith secretly watches Hannah disappear upstairs with the supposed Mu Jin Kong. Elsewhere, three men quietly discuss the unfolding situation with their superior. The boss orders them to gather information on every waiter aboard the ship. As for Hannah, they decide to continue observing her because events are becoming increasingly interesting. Inside the private room, Oslo quietly warns Hannah that the room may not be safe. Hannah confidently brushes off his concerns and says she knows exactly what she is walking into. Even so, Oslo watches her with obvious worry as she proceeds inside. The man gracefully pours wine into crystal glasses and offers Hannah a robe so the stain on her dress will not set permanently. As he speaks, Hannah carefully studies the room and quickly notices a hidden surveillance camera overhead. Her instincts also tell her there is probably a concealed listening device somewhere nearby. The man encourages her to relax and make herself comfortable, insisting it is the least he can do for a fellow Korean. Using the opportunity, Hannah steers the conversation toward the ship and eventually manages to coax the man into revealing his name, Mu Jin Kong. Pretending to be emotional, Hannah invents another story about her sister supposedly falling in love with a man named Muin Kong. She jokingly wonders aloud whether her sister's lover might secretly be a womanizer and teasingly admits that she personally likes dangerous men. All the while, she subtly pats him down beneath the table. The moment she finishes, her suspicion is confirmed. The man is completely unarmed. Acting instantly, Hannah grabs him by the collar and slams him onto the floor. Pointing her weapon at him, she demands to know his real identity and warns him not to lie. According to her, the guards outside are not protecting him at all. They are monitoring him. Pressured and terrified, the man claims ignorance. However, he eventually reveals that he received mysterious instructions from a Cambodian phone number. Immediately, Hannah orders him to call the number. She is convinced the real Mu Jin Kong may be secretly watching everything unfold. To force the hidden mastermind out of hiding, Hannah suddenly fires her gun. The gunshot causes guards to burst into the room. Alarmed, Oslo demands to know what is happening, but Hannah silences him with a gesture as she focuses entirely on the call. A distorted voice answers. Hannah instantly notices the use of a voice modulator. Ignoring everything else, she directly demands information about her missing brother. She coldly warns the man that if he refuses to answer, the decoy beside her will suffer the same fate she just threatened him with. Then, without warning, another gunshot echoes through the room. The decoy is killed instantly. The mysterious voice calmly explains that he does not currently have Hannah's brother, but he claims D is very close by. He cryptically warns her not to panic because the party is almost over before promising they will meet soon. Hannah immediately realizes the terrifying implication behind his words. If the party is ending, then Julio Parenti is probably in serious danger. At the same time, elsewhere on the ship, Julio is desperately ordering his men to find Hannah and bring her back to him. Consumed by urgency, Hannah rushes toward the exit, but Oslo grabs her hand and begs her to slow down. She quickly jerks her hand away and demands to know who Mujin Kong's true target is. Oslo hesitates before explaining that Mujin Kong is likely monitoring them right now, meaning they need to pretend they are arguing to avoid suspicion. Hannah refuses to let him dodge the question and demands an honest answer. Finally, Oslo reluctantly reveals the truth. Julio Parenti is the target. Hannah immediately wonders why the man impersonating Julio is now trying to kill him as well. Suddenly, a sniper's laser sight appears directly on Oslo. Without hesitation, Hannah tackles him aside and saves his life just in time. She warns him that Mujin Kong seems determined to eliminate everyone connected to her. She then firmly declares that Mujin Kong is no longer Valentine's client. When Oslo asks what she plans to do now, Hannah answers without hesitation. She is going to save Julio Parenti because he promised to help her find her brother. Preparing herself for the fight ahead, Hannah tears her dress shorter so she can move more freely. Just as she is about to leave, Julio suddenly walks into the room. Immediately, Hannah orders Oslo to leave before the other agents get dragged into the chaos. Then she turns to Julio and urgently tells him to get out as well, because Mujin Kong is specifically targeting him. Julio ignores the warning and instead demands to know where she has been. Hannah notices bloodstains on his clothes, and the two agree to continue their conversation inside the room, before things outside spiral even further out of control. Hannah immediately asks Julio whether he is injured. Julio glances at the blood covering his clothes and teasingly asks if she really thinks it belongs to him. He explains that it came from the men who attacked him during the chaos aboard the ship. Without warning, he pulls her tightly into his arms and admits that when he saw a bullet flying in her direction, his vision blurred for a moment. The thought of losing her genuinely terrified him. Once he calms down, Julio reassures Hannah that her brother was never on the ship and most likely escaped safely before everything spiraled out of control. Trying to regain composure, Julio pours himself a drink while ordering his men over the phone to clean up the remaining threats and prepare for their arrival at the hotel. However, the moment he takes a sip, something immediately feels wrong. Dizziness suddenly overtakes him. Confused, Julio questions Hannah about the drink, and she quickly explains that she never drinks alcohol while working. Before she can react, Julio stumbles across the room in a daze. In a burst of rage, he unloads several bullets into the corpse of the fake Mujin Kong. Startled, Hannah demands to know what he is doing while silently wondering what kind of substance was mixed into the alcohol. Before she can stabilize him, Lorenzo suddenly bursts into the room and urgently announces that they need to leave immediately because the FBI is swarming the ship. Soon afterward, the group arrives at Yuri Petrov's hotel. Hannah and Lorenzo struggle to support Julio because he is still heavily affected by whatever was placed in the drink. As they walk through the hotel, Hannah quietly warns Lorenzo that Julio becomes aggressive whenever strangers touch him. Lorenzo dryly asks whether she still is not used to that behavior by now. When they finally enter the secured suite, Yuri assures them that nobody can enter without permission. He then asks whether Julio was drugged or somehow managed to knock himself unconscious on his own. Exhausted beyond belief, Hannah simply says she is too tired to explain. Instead, she hands Yuri the phone connected to Mujin Kong. She admits she cannot unlock it but insists Yuri probably can. Hannah orders him to install a location tracker, duplicate all the data, and return the phone to her afterward. Her tone makes it clear this is not a request. As they continue walking, Yuri casually mentions that Hannah should use the items Rose provided earlier. He then reveals the truth about Julio's condition. The wine contained a new type of stimulant mixed with an unidentified aphrodisiac. According to Yuri, the antidote capsule hidden in Hannah's bracelet may briefly send Julio into shock, but it would quickly restore his senses. Curious, Hannah asks what would happen if they simply left him untreated. Yuri smirks and warns her that doing so would probably create a far bigger problem for her personally. Eventually, they manage to place Julio onto the bed. Hannah tells Lorenzo he can leave now, but he hesitates. To convince him, she points out an injury near his upper abdomen and urges him to get treated immediately because she does not want to worry about him too. Lorenzo offers to send additional help, but Hannah refuses. She insists nobody else should risk getting hurt by Julio in his current state. Before leaving, Lorenzo gives her a few practical warnings and quietly exits the room. Left alone, Hannah begins considering how to wake Julio properly. However, when she turns around, she realizes he is no longer on the bed. Then she hears the shower running. Rushing into the bathroom, Hannah finds Julio fully clothed beneath the cold water. Concerned, she asks whether he is finally regaining control of himself. Julio weakly responds that she should either leave the room or get another one entirely. The two exchange playful remarks for a while, but suddenly Julio doubles over in pain. Hannah immediately tells him to maintain control no matter what happens. Supporting his weight, she carefully leads him back toward the bedroom. But just as she tries helping him onto the bed, Julio suddenly tilts her chin upward and kisses her. Water drips from his soaked clothes onto the floor as the tension between them intensifies. In the middle of the kiss, Julio abruptly pulls a hairpin from Hannah's hair and stabs himself with it. Panicked, Hannah demands to know what he is doing. Julio desperately tells her to leave because if she stays any longer, he fears he will completely lose control and attack her like an animal. Hannah glares at him and bluntly says she may eventually bleed to death because of his reckless behavior, but something like this is not enough to kill her. Then, in a much softer tone, she tells him to simply hold her instead. The two move back onto the bed together, but Hannah begins hesitating internally. Part of her wonders whether she should just use the antidote immediately, even if it sends Julio into shock. While she is lost in thought, Julio suddenly grabs her gently by the neck and apologizes. He admits that if she is already regretting this, then it is too late to stop now. His words become increasingly possessive as he whispers about making every inch of her belong to him until she becomes intoxicated by his presence alone. Elsewhere, Gavin Smith finally returns to a hidden safe house while wearing completely different clothes. His partner immediately questions the outfit change since he had attended the party disguised as a waiter. Gavin explains that investigators began questioning all the waitstaff, so he switched disguises and escaped as a delivery driver instead. His partner reassures him that nobody will recognize him no matter how thoroughly they investigate the staff records. At that moment, the truth is finally revealed. The man speaking with Gavin Smith is none other than Hannah's missing twin brother, Doi. Gavin casually mentions that he recognized several familiar faces at the party. Then with a faint smile, he tells Doi that he saw Hannah standing beside Julio Parenti. According to him, the two looked deeply in love. The following morning, Julio slowly wakes up and gently brushes his fingers across Hannah's face, causing her to open her eyes as well. Half teasing, Hannah asks whether he is checking to see if she survived the night. Julio quietly turns away, indirectly confirming her suspicion. She presses him further, asking whether he worried that he may have forced himself on her while under the influence. With a small smirk, Hannah casually dismisses the situation by claiming that last night was simply a mutual exchange to satisfy each other's needs. Deep inside, however, she continues calculating. The more Julio desires her, the easier it will become to manipulate him for her own goals. Julio responds by suggesting that her words make it sound as though she wants him just as much as he wants her. Laughing softly, Hannah turns away and says she is not in the mood right now. She firmly warns him not to touch her for at least the next 2 days. Julio laughs and agrees before leaning over to kiss her lightly anyway. Later, they meet with Yuri Petrov, who informs Hannah that the analysis of Mujin Kong's phone is complete. Sliding the device across the table, Yuri reveals that the last incoming call originated from inside the ship itself. That means the real Mujin Kong truly attended the party despite using a stand-in. Yuri then asks whether Hannah learned anything useful during her phone conversation with him. Hannah explains that Mujin Kong claimed he did not have Doi with him. While she cannot guarantee he was telling the truth, she believes it is likely. She also points out that Gavin Smith's sudden movements suggest things are no longer going smoothly for him either. Yuri then asks whether Logan Valentine might know more since Mujin Kong could potentially be one of his clients. Hannah admits she wants to help, but Logan strictly protects client confidentiality no matter what. At that moment, Se Jiang suddenly interrupts the conversation and hands Hannah a photograph. According to Se, she managed to enhance the image as much as possible, and it supposedly contains a picture of the real Mujin Kong. Hannah studies the blurry photograph carefully, then her expression changes completely. The face strongly resembles Yansong. Realizing she has not seen him all morning, Hannah begins connecting the dots. Romano and Lorenzo both suffered injuries during the attack, yet Yansong disappeared entirely. As she sinks deeper into thought, Julio suddenly leans close and teasingly asks why she is staring so intensely at another man's photograph. Mockingly, he wonders if she is already tired of him. Then Julio reveals another shocking update. The man who betrayed Hannah, Tai Jank, recently became the target of an assassination attempt. Surprised, Hannah immediately questions who would want him dead. Julio calmly replies that there is only one person capable of silencing him now. Without hesitation, Julio orders his men to locate Mujin Kong immediately. Elsewhere, a completely different scene unfolds. A man stands surrounded by cameras and reporters. This man is revealed to be Mok Kong, the older half-brother of Mujin Kong. During a public speech, Mok Kong announces that foreign criminals targeted innocent citizens. He mournfully reveals that Doi Li, a respected narcotics investigator, supposedly died during a terrorist bombing. He also states that Doi's colleague Tan Choi remains in critical condition after the incident. Then Mo Kong reveals yet another victim, his own half-brother Mu Jin Kong. According to the story presented to the public, Mu Jin Kong was brutally murdered after hosting a party aboard the ship, and his body was thrown into the ocean. Visibly emotional, Mok Kong confesses a hidden family secret. Although Mu Jin Kong was his half-brother and the two spent much of their childhood separated, they eventually reunited as adults. While the news spreads across the country, the real Mujin Kong quietly watches the broadcast from inside a restaurant. Moments later, Logan Valentine enters and approaches his table. Logan coldly informs him that their contract is terminated because Mu Jin Kong targeted Valentine's agents, a direct violation of their organization's rules. Mu Jin Kong immediately denies responsibility and suggests the FBI may have orchestrated the entire attack themselves. Then, with an amused smile, he shows Logan the ongoing news broadcast about his own supposed death. According to Mu Jin Kong, Mo Kong's political schemes are now capturing the public's full attention. Mu Jin Kong calmly predicts that the public will soon demand immediate justice against the criminals responsible for the recent chaos, especially the mysterious Giulio Parenti. Then he leans closer to Logan Valentine and quietly asks a dangerous question. Who benefits the most from all this chaos? The question immediately unsettles Logan. His mind races as he begins realizing that every event unfolding around them may be happening exactly as Mu Jin Kong intended from the very beginning. The realization alone is enough to convince Logan that keeping his distance from the man would be wise. Determined to sever ties with Mun Shipping completely, Logan turns to leave. However, before he can finish speaking, Mu Jin Kong smoothly interrupts him with a tempting offer. 5 times the original payment. Logan pauses instantly and slowly turns back toward him. Calmly, he asks what Mu Jin Kong wants in return. With complete confidence, Mu Jin Kong replies that the job is simple. Logan only needs to guarantee Hannah Lee's safety and ensure that not a single hair on her head is harmed. Elsewhere, Mu Jin Kong, who is also known as Yen Song, returns home and stands beneath a hot shower. While the water pours over him, he quietly reflects on Hannah's behavior at the party. To him, her actions with Julio Parenti looked like an obvious performance. He wonders whether her feelings for Julio are genuine or merely another calculated act. In his thoughts, he dismisses Julio as nothing more than a reckless dilettante. After what feels like an endless shower, Yan Song finally steps out and returns to the room, only to freeze in surprise. Julio Parenti is sitting there waiting for him. The two men stare at each other in complete silence for several tense seconds, before Yan Song finally breaks the silence by casually suggesting that Julio may have entered the wrong room. Without reacting, Julio lights a cigarette and coldly announces that Yan Song is fired. Smirking slightly, Yan Song questions the real reason behind the dismissal. He suggests that Julio is simply afraid he might steal Hannah away from him. The tension instantly explodes. Both men grab each other by the collar as their mutual hatred becomes impossible to hide. Julio orders him to shut his mouth, but Yan Song deliberately continues provoking him. Furious, Julio violently slams him to the ground and prepares to punch him. At that exact moment, Hannah rushes into the room. Demanding to know what is happening, she orders Julio to lower his fist. After a brief pause, he finally releases Yan Song's clothes. Hannah asks for an explanation, and Julio bluntly reveals that he is firing Yan Song as her bodyguard. Although she acts surprised, Hannah secretly realizes she cannot allow that to happen. If there is even a small possibility that Yan Song is the real Mu Jin Kong, then they need to keep him close and monitor him carefully. Yan Song slowly rises to his feet and reminds Hannah of his earlier warning to stay away from Julio Parenti. According to him, finding her brother should remain her highest priority. Then he mentions something important regarding the photograph Hannah showed him earlier. He claims they overlooked a hidden message Dee was trying to send her. Hannah immediately flinches and asks whether he discovered something new. Yan Song confirms it but calmly adds that since he has just been fired, he no longer feels obligated to share the information. Extending his hand toward her, he makes one final offer. If Hannah joins forces with him, he will help her find her brother. He jokingly adds that this is hardly the right time for her to be romantically involved with a mobster. Annoyed, Hannah asks whether he expects her to beg for his help. She insists that she is perfectly capable of finding her brother on her own, before storming out of the room. Julio quickly follows after her. Once inside another room, Hannah finds herself deep in thought. Part of her wonders whether Yan Song has been right from the very beginning. Her original plan was always simple. She intended to use Julio Parenti for her own goals. That plan has not changed. Yet no matter how hard she tries to deny it, she keeps secretly hoping for something more between them, even though she knows a real relationship with someone like Julio is impossible. Julio knocks on the door repeatedly, but Hannah firmly tells him not to come inside. He continues asking her to let him in anyway. Just as she reaches for the handle, her phone suddenly rings. Her heart skips instantly. Thinking it may be her brother, she answers the call and immediately hears Dee's worried voice asking if she is okay. He urgently tells her to leave immediately and questions why she is staying near someone like Julio Parenti. Hannah admits that she already knows Julio as a mafia boss, but she has made her decision because she believes he has her best chance of finding him. Taking a deep breath, she finally opens the door and allows Julio inside while continuing the call. Dee warns her again about how dangerous it is to trust a mafia boss, but Hannah refuses to back down. Instead, she asks for his exact location. Unable to reveal too much over the phone because of possible wiretaps, Dee gives her coordinates instead. Hannah immediately tells him to stay where he is and promises to make everyone responsible for hurting him pay for what they have done. Emotion overwhelms Dee as he quietly admits how much he misses her and begs her not to put herself in danger anymore. Hannah gently reassures him and asks him to wait just a little longer. While she is distracted by the call, Julio silently approaches from behind and takes her hand. Softly, he tells her that he intends to accompany her. Confused, Hannah asks why he wants to help when finding her brother offers him absolutely nothing in return. Julio answers honestly. Dee is important to her, and he dislikes the fact that Hannah's attention is constantly focused on someone else. Even so, he still wants to help however he can. After the call ends, Hannah admits there is something she needs to confess. She explains that during her time as a Valentine's agent, she arrested a man whose family was later destroyed while he was imprisoned. Before dying, the man swore he would one day make her experience the same suffering by taking away everything precious to her. At first, Hannah ignored the threat, but when her brother disappeared, she suddenly began dreaming about him again after many years. Even though the man is dead, his curse still feels painfully real to her. Hannah quietly admits that she fears the chain of hatred she created may eventually return and destroy everyone around her. That fear is why she struggles to let people get close to her. As tears begin forming in her eyes, Julio gently wipes them away before kissing her trembling lips. He softly reassures her that those fears are meaningless. Then, for the first time, Julio opens up about his mother, a beautiful woman with black hair and pale skin, who became involved in an affair. Although Julio's father forgave her out of love, his younger brother Flavio never could. Eventually, Flavio was brutally murdered by his mother's lover. Julio describes finding his brother's lifeless body inside a chapel, a sight that shattered him completely. Consumed by madness and grief, he hunted down the killer, dismembered him, and sent the remains back to his own mother. In a chilling confession, Julio admits that he ultimately gave his mother a death even more painful than Flavio's. Looking directly into Hannah's eyes, he tells her this is the kind of man he truly is, a merciless criminal capable of turning against even his own family without remorse. Quietly, he asks whether she despises him now. Instead of recoiling, Hannah reminds him of the first time they met inside the trailer. Back then, he looked like a man who had already accepted death long before it arrived. She tells him that she neither hates nor fears him. If anything, she understands him more deeply now. The confession leads into another passionate kiss. Deep down, Hannah knows moments like this are temporary. Once she finds her brother, she plans to leave within 2 days. For now, however, this fragile intimacy is enough for her. Meanwhile, at Dee's hideout, Gavin Smith grows increasingly worried about the escalating situation. He admits he can hardly believe Hannah and Julio now appear to be romantically involved. Defending his sister, Dee insists that things are not what they seem. According to him, Hannah only approached Julio because Ton Choi fed her false information. Dee further explains that he already shared his location with Hannah because he wants to settle everything face to face. As Gavin listens, he quietly reflects on just how deeply Dee cares for his sister. He remembers their first meeting after the bombing in Cambodia and how the two eventually began working together after much persuasion. Their partnership took a shocking turn when Moo Jin Kong invited numerous criminals he had impersonated onto a luxury boat party, a gathering that descended into complete chaos and left many powerful figures dead. Gavin silently admits that he never expected to one day pick up a weapon to protect someone like Julio Parenti. Suddenly, Gavin's phone rings. The caller urgently informs him that a serious complication has appeared and instructs him to open a link that was just sent to him, immediately increasing the tension surrounding the entire situation. When Gavin Smith and Dee opened the link they had just received, they were immediately met with Mo Kong's public broadcast declaring that Moo Jin Kong was dead. The caller quickly clarified that the entire announcement was fabricated propaganda, but the damage had already been done. Public opinion was shifting rapidly. Worse still, Doi Lee himself had now become a wanted criminal. According to the report, both the FBI and CIA had issued warrants accusing him of drug trafficking and attempted murder. The caller also revealed that someone had already uncovered Gavin Smith's connection to Doi. That person was M. Sergey, and he was actively hunting them. Realizing how dangerous the situation had become, the caller urgently ordered them to run immediately. Without wasting another second, Gavin grabbed his belongings and rushed outside to start the car while yelling at Dee to pack everything quickly. Dee reminded him that Hannah was already on her way to their location, but Gavin insisted he contact her immediately. As an added precaution, Gavin even handed Dee the phone he once used while undercover in New York, a phone he swore he would never activate again after betraying Julio Parenti. Moments later, the two finally fled the hideout. As they drove away, Gavin muttered that he would also need to contact the mafia boss. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, Moo Jin Kong and Logan Valentine sat together inside another car. Logan questioned him directly about the conflict with Julio Parenti. Moo Jin Kong calmly explained that his attempts to get close to Hannah clearly did not sit well with Julio. Internally, however, he admitted that perhaps getting fired by Hannah was actually the safer outcome, considering the risks involved in approaching her personally. Suddenly, Logan received an urgent notification. He immediately informed Mu Kong that the FBI was mobilizing and advised him to leave the area at once. At that exact moment, Mu Kong spotted Gavin Smith's car on the road ahead. Logan instantly recognized Doe inside the vehicle. Without hesitation, Mu Kong ordered his driver to follow them and not let the car escape. Smiling mischievously, he announced that they were going to capture Hannah's brother alive. Then he pulled out a gun and opened fire on the vehicle. At the same time, Giulio Parenti was urgently speaking with Yuri Petrov over the phone. He warned Yuri that the FBI was mobilizing and explained that the information came directly from Gavin Smith. According to Gavin, they needed to evacuate Hong Kong immediately. Yuri confirmed the information and instructed everyone to regroup at Repulse Bay within 15 minutes. However, Julio quietly admitted that leaving immediately was impossible. Yuri instantly realized the problem involved Hannah. Coldly, he suggested using the drugs hidden in Hannah's bracelet to render her unconscious. He warned Julio not to complain about shortages or side effects, because there were none worth worrying about. Julio remained silent. Understanding perfectly well what that silence meant, Yuri explained further that the bracelet contained not only stimulants but also a tiny amount of propofol, a powerful sedative designed for medical use. According to him, Julio now had only two choices: either extract Hannah while she was unconscious, or stay behind and get captured by the FBI alongside her. The call ended shortly afterward. One of Julio's men then asked what their next move would be. Julio calmly ordered the evacuation to continue without him and instructed the man to procure a syringe. Meanwhile, Mu Kong relentlessly continued firing at Gavin Smith's car during the pursuit. Inside the vehicle, Dee and Gavin desperately tried to understand who was attacking them, but neither of them knew for certain. The chase rapidly spiraled out of control. Gavin swerved onto a narrow road, but the pursuing vehicle kept gaining ground while continuing to fire. Then the two cars collided violently. Gavin's vehicle slammed hard into a roadside guardrail as dust and smoke filled the air. Mu Kong slowly stepped out of his car and approached the wreckage. Looking through the damaged windows, he saw both Dee and Gavin unconscious inside. To him, it looked like victory. Elsewhere, Hannah excitedly prepared to reunite with her brother. She told Julio they needed to hurry because she had already decoded the coordinates and confirmed that Dee was somewhere near Stanley Bay. Instead of answering immediately, Julio suddenly pulled her close and kissed her passionately. Hannah tried reminding him that this was not the time, but Julio ignored her protests. Quietly and carefully, he pulled out a syringe and injected it into her neck. Startled, Hannah immediately slapped the syringe away and demanded to know what he was doing. But before she could fully react, drowsiness overwhelmed her. The last thing she heard was Julio apologizing repeatedly before she collapsed unconscious into his arms. Back at the crash site, Mu Kong yanked open the damaged car door. As Dee slowly regained consciousness, he weakly demanded to know who he was. In response, Mu Kong pressed a gun beneath his chin and cryptically remarked that he shared a very special connection with Hannah. Confused and alarmed, Dee asked how he knew his sister. Mu Kong calmly replied that he knew far more than Dee could possibly imagine. Then he thanked Dee for the photograph he had sent earlier, complimenting the hidden message inside it. According to Mu Kong, red oak is rarely used in shipbuilding because water damages it easily. By photographing the floor, Dee had actually been trying to signal that he was aboard a permanently anchored ship. Unfortunately, Hannah failed to notice the clue. Realizing this, Dee cursed under his breath and demanded to know what Mu Kong truly wanted. Overwhelmed by the situation, Dee nearly lost consciousness again, but Mu Kong calmly told him he could not pass out yet because their conversation had barely started. At that moment, Gavin Smith suddenly coughed and regained awareness. The instant he saw Mu Kong clearly, his expression darkened. He was almost certain this man was the real Mu Kong. Interestingly, Mu Kong himself looked surprised and casually asked whether they had met before. Furious, Gavin demanded to know how he dared track them all the way to such a remote place. Mu Kong simply smirked and remarked that Gavin certainly talked a lot for someone whose life was hanging by a thread. Then he pointed the gun directly at Gavin and pulled the trigger. A single gunshot echoed through the area. Immediately afterward, Logan Valentine rushed out and angrily scolded Mu Kong for taking things too far. Completely unfazed, Mu Kong replied that he had only intended to scare them a little. As Logan checked the wreckage, he recognized Dee as Hannah's brother. However, before he could finish speaking, Mu Kong pointed a gun directly at his head and coldly reminded Logan who his actual client was. He warned Logan not to test his patience. Then Mu Kong ordered Logan to clean up the scene and move both Dee and Gavin into their own vehicle. As he turned away, he casually remarked that it was finally time for him to embrace his role as a true villain. Elsewhere, Hannah suddenly jolted awake aboard a ship while screaming her brother's name. As she looked around, realization slowly hit her. The surroundings resembled Yuri Petrov's cruise ship. Her mind immediately returned to Giulio. Why had he stopped her from seeing her brother after promising to help her? Consumed by anger, Hannah stormed out of the room and burst into an ongoing meeting. Sarcastically, she asked whether she was interrupting some important operation. Julio immediately stood up and calmly asked how she was feeling. Hannah bitterly pointed out the irony of that question considering he was the one who injected a syringe into her neck. Struggling to contain her frustration, she directly demanded to know where her brother was. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Finally, Julio admitted that D was probably no longer at the coordinates he provided. According to him, he had no other choice because the FBI was preparing a large-scale search operation. Heartbroken and furious, Hannah grabbed Julio's shirt and reminded him that he promised to help her find D. More importantly, she trusted him. Julio said nothing. After several painful seconds, Hannah released his shirt and coldly announced that she was leaving. Even if she had to swim across the ocean herself, she would find her brother. Julio called after her, but she ignored him completely. As tears streamed down her face, she walked away from him. Julio reached for her hand, but Hannah immediately slapped it aside and called him a hypocrite. Then her phone suddenly rang. Desperately hoping it was D, Hannah answered immediately. But the voice on the other end belonged to Mujin Kong. With trembling breath, Hannah demanded to know where her brother was. Mujin Kong calmly admitted that things became a little violent, but he assured her that D was still alive. Then, almost regretfully, he confessed that he originally intended to kill D. However, seeing how much D resembled Hannah made him hesitate. He hinted that by now she should already know who he really was. Mujin Kong then revealed that he had traced her location through the call and that once they hung up, the FBI would receive her coordinates immediately. Calmly, he asked Hannah what she thought would happen to the dilettante standing beside her once the authorities arrived. He warned her not to get dragged down by Julio's affairs. Finally, he invited Hannah to come join him if she wanted to see her brother again. While listening to him speak, Hannah suddenly pieced everything together. Yensong, with rage boiling inside her, she accused him directly. Yansong laughed softly and admitted he expected her to figure it out eventually. Enraged, Hannah swore that the next time they met, she would put a gun to his throat and make him regret ever existing. After ending the call, she turned toward Julio and demanded to know whether he was aware of Yansong's true identity all along. Instead of answering immediately, Julio simply pulled her into his arms and apologized. Hannah anxiously repeated her concerns about Dee's safety. Julio reassured her that he had already paid the necessary price to guarantee her brother stayed alive. When she asked who he paid, Julio calmly answered with a single word, death. He then assured her that Valentine's organization would continue monitoring Mujin Kong closely. Still doubtful, Hannah pointed out that Mujin Kong was technically Logan Valentine's client. Julio responded by saying that mercenaries ultimately remain loyal only to the highest bidder. Although hesitant, Hannah eventually offers Julio a deal. In exchange for Dee's safety, she will testify to the FBI that Julio was merely another victim manipulated by Mujin Kong. To her surprise, Julio immediately accepts. Smirking faintly, he jokes that he is the nice villain who got used by her, while she is the bad villain who took advantage of him. Then he promises that she will not even need to appear before the FBI personally. Leaning closer, Julio quietly asks for a kiss. Hannah teasingly asks what he plans to do if she refuses. With a mischievous smile, Julio replies that he will simply steal one instead before kissing her cheek. Hannah grabs his shirt and tells him to stop acting so soft and return to being his usual difficult self. Playfully, she calls him a dilettante before pressing herself against him and admitting that this may be their final night together. Julio smirks and reminds her that she was the one who started this encounter in the first place. The two return to the room together, and Julio teasingly remarks that Hannah seems completely fascinated by his body. Hannah casually agrees, saying that his body is probably his only redeeming quality. Julio smirks at the comment and reminds her that she was the one who initiated all of this, so she should be prepared for what comes next. Without waiting for another response, he kisses her. As Hannah melts into the moment, she quietly admits to herself that Julio can be unbelievably irritating at times. Yet whenever he touches her with such tenderness, her heart aches as though she has fallen under a spell. Their intimate moment deepens as Julio gently tells her not to avoid his gaze and encourages her to kiss him properly. Meanwhile, Hannah cannot stop thinking about tomorrow and the possibility that this may truly be their final night together. Eventually, she decides that if tonight really is their last night, then she does not want to waste it worrying about the future. For now, all she wants is to hold him and never let go. She allows herself that brief moment of selfishness. Later that day, Julio gently strokes Hannah's hair and kisses the top of her head while telling her she can sleep a little longer because they still have time before anything begins. Then he quietly leaves the room. The moment the door closes, Hannah immediately opens her eyes. She had only been pretending to sleep. The memories of everything they shared the night before continue replaying in her mind, leaving her emotionally exhausted. Sitting silently on the bed, she finally picks up her phone and calls Logan Valentine. The moment he answers, Hannah bluntly tells him that he has something important to explain. After a brief silence, Logan admits that Julio Parenti personally requested that Valentine's organization rescue her brother. He says he never intended to hide that fact from her. Hannah immediately asks about Dee's condition. Logan reassures her that Dee is injured, but nothing life-threatening. He also admits he underestimated just how insane Mujin Kong truly is and apologizes for ignoring the warning signs. Then Hannah asks Logan for a favor. She explains that she intends to personally lead the operation Valentine's organization has been assigned to handle. Surprised, Logan asks whether Julio knows about this decision, but Hannah clearly intends to keep it secret from him. According to her, the CIA is already watching Julio closely, and she refuses to put him in further danger because of her choices. Eventually, Logan agrees, and the two begin discussing strategy. Hannah orders him to send Ellen immediately. Logan confirms he will do so and adds that he will also prepare end-of-day equipment for the mission. Then he asks if she needs anything else. In the middle of the conversation, the door quietly creaks open, and Sejang enters the room. Hannah casually introduces her as a collaborator. Hearing that, Logan asks whether anyone else besides them is involved in the operation. Hannah confirms that someone from Yuri Petrov's side also agreed to help. Carefully listening to the conversation, Sei asks Hannah whether she is fully prepared for what comes next. Hannah confidently nods. Once the preparations are finalized, Sei quietly prepares a syringe. Curious, Logan asks what exactly Hannah is doing. Hannah calmly explains that she is implanting a GPS chip inside her own body. Because Mujin Kong is too clever for ordinary trackers, she needs something he will never suspect. Although Hannah reassures Logan that she will be fine, he still sounds worried. He asks when the operation will begin. Hannah answers immediately. 32 minutes. She is confident she can reach the coordinates before then. Before ending the call, she entrusts Logan with protecting her brother while she is away. Once the call ends, C explains that the implanted GPS chip will activate automatically the moment Hannah enters the water. Hannah sincerely thanks her and promises to repay her someday for all the help she has provided. However, Sei quietly insists that she is not helping because she expects repayment. Then Sei asks the question lingering in her mind, will Julio approve of this mission? Hannah immediately admits that this is exactly why she intends to keep it hidden from him. Worried, Sei confesses that if Julio discovers she helped Hannah escape on such a dangerous mission, he might actually kill her. Even so, she repeats what she said before. Whenever she looks at Hannah, she feels as though she is seeing her younger self all over again. More than anything, Sei genuinely hopes Hannah succeeds in saving her brother. Then Sei quietly asks one final thing in return. She wants to know how Hannah truly feels about Julio. Sometime later, Hannah is seen training intensely and preparing herself physically for the mission ahead. Eventually, C approaches her again and asks whether she is ready. She explains that she instructed the guards to stall Julio and the others for as long as possible, but they will not be able to delay them forever. As Hannah prepares to leave, she wishes Sei well and politely offers her a handshake. Instead, C unexpectedly hugs her. Softly, she thanks Hannah for showing her just how deeply she cares about Julio. At that exact moment, Julio suddenly storms into the area and angrily demands to know what Hannah is doing. Realizing she has no time left, Hannah immediately grabs her bag and rushes toward the water. She warns Julio not to follow her. Desperately, Julio pleads with her to stay so they can talk things through properly, but Hannah shakes her head. She admits she never wanted things to reach this point. Then she urges him to leave while he still has the chance. According to her, he should return to his territory because she has no intention of visiting him in prison someday. Finally, Hannah quietly says goodbye before jumping directly into the water. Furious, Julio immediately shouts for Lorenzo and orders him to contact Logan Valentine to figure out exactly what is happening. Then he turns towards C. C calmly explains that Hannah only acted this way because she was trying to protect him. Julio's anger explodes instantly. He bitterly asks whether that is why Sei helped Hannah swim straight toward her own death. Consumed by frustration, Julio violently flips the table in front of him, sending everything crashing across the room. His fury is overwhelming as he demands answers from Sei. Before things escalate further, Yuri Petrov quickly steps in front of his wife and warns Julio not to disrespect her again. Completely shaken, Julio admits that Hannah's reckless decision could get her killed, and the emotional strain is driving him insane. Quietly standing behind Yuri, Sei chooses not to reveal the truth Hannah confessed earlier. She does not tell Julio that Hannah loves him. Elsewhere, Mujin Kong continues holding Dee hostage while calmly speaking with him. He remarks that Dee is surprisingly different from Hannah, while still sharing many of her traits. Dee immediately redirects the conversation back toward the danger surrounding them. Even though Mujin Kong insists he is playing the hero by rescuing Hannah from the mafia, Dee strongly doubts he truly understands Hannah at all. Trying to reason with him, Dee urges Mujin Kong to abandon his plan and escape before everything collapses around them. However, despite being injured and restrained, Dee quickly realizes what is truly happening. Mujin Kong believes he is saving Hannah. Then, without hesitation, Mujin Kong openly admits that he has feelings for her. He dismisses any suggestion of running away and says he misses Hannah terribly. According to him, there is no reason to flee when he fully intends to rescue her from the mafia's influence. Smiling to himself, Mujin Kong even admits that taking Dee hostage was partly a way to lure Hannah directly to him. Confused, Dee wonders how he is supposed to help anyone while tied up like this. Mujin Kong casually hints that Dee's freedom may come much sooner than expected. Curious, Dee asks where he will go if released. Still riding the high of what he believes is victory, Mujin Kong proudly explains his master plan. He expects Logan Valentine to rescue Hannah first, after which he intends to arrange an exchange between Hannah and her twin brother. According to him, Hannah's love for Dee will guarantee her cooperation. Just as he continues outlining the plan, his phone suddenly rings. Expecting news about Logan's arrival, Mujin Kong answers immediately, only to freeze in surprise when he hears Hannah's voice instead. Confused, Hannah asks why he is chasing Logan when he should have been waiting for someone else. Then, without warning, gunfire rains down from above. Hannah has arrived in a helicopter. Caught completely off guard, Mujin Kong and his men scramble as Hannah opens fire from the air. Alongside her brother, she reminds Mujin Kong about the threat she made earlier and swears that the next time they meet, she will put a gun against his throat. To her surprise, Mujin Kong simply laughs and admits he expected nothing less from her. Then, in one swift movement, he grabs Dee and places him in a chokehold while pressing a gun against his head. Smiling wickedly, he asks Hannah whether she came to save her brother and compliments her clever strategy. He even suggests negotiating a deal. Before Hannah can respond, Logan suddenly interrupts with urgent news. Logan urges Hannah to prioritize rescuing him first. Although he understands her anger, he points out that Mujin Kong appears willing to negotiate and therefore probably will not kill Dee unless absolutely necessary. According to Logan, Gavin Smith is the bigger immediate problem. Taking his advice, Hannah immediately changes course. A rope is lowered from the helicopter, allowing her access to the building. Before leaving, she warns Mujin Kong to stay put, because she fully intends to deal with him personally afterward. With unwavering determination, Hannah climbs toward the building and breaks into the 14th floor to rescue Gavin Smith. Meanwhile, Dee finally confronts his kidnapper directly, warning Mujin Kong that his time is running out. However, Mujin Kong remains completely unfazed. Smirking calmly, he cryptically replies that his fate depends entirely on how effective Dee can be as a human shield. Elsewhere, Hannah informs Logan that she successfully secured Gavin Smith as a hostage. Unfortunately, the relief lasts only a moment before Logan urgently reveals that Mujin Kong is already on the move downstairs and heading toward the basement. Without wasting time, Hannah removes the gag from Gavin Smith. Excited to finally meet the legendary agent known as One, Gavin immediately begins questioning her about Mujin Kong's whereabouts and insists that they need to capture him alive. Hannah jokingly threatens to gag him again if he keeps talking too much. Instantly backing down, Gavin quickly promises that he can uncover every hidden document connected to Mujin Kong. According to him, those files are crucial for clearing Dee's name. Thinking quickly, Hannah orders him to move faster and reminds him that she would not be risking herself there if it were not absolutely necessary. Then, with determination burning in her eyes, she strides toward the door and kicks it open with enough force to shake the frame. The moment the door swings open, her expression hardens. More of Mujin Kong's men are charging directly toward them. Reacting immediately, Hannah orders Gavin to stay close, because if he gets captured after she already rescued him once, she will personally kill him herself. Without hesitation, she launches into combat. The hallway erupts into chaos as Hannah fights through the approaching enemies with ruthless precision. After taking them down one after another, she turns back toward Gavin and warns him that if he truly wants Mujin Kong alive, then he needs to keep up with her pace. As they race through the building, Hannah casually points out that she rescued Gavin before rescuing her own brother, meaning he now owes her a favor. Gavin fires back with a grin, suggesting that perhaps he can repay her by helping save Dee instead. Then, with complete seriousness, he promises to do everything he can as long as they survive the current situation. Soon afterward, they finally reach the control room. Hannah immediately asks Gavin whether the files exposing Mujin Kong's crimes are really stored there. Gavin confidently confirms it and explains that he intends to secure every piece of evidence possible. Working quickly, he bypasses the security system with surprising ease, and proudly remarks that the system barely slowed him down. Turning toward Hannah, he assures her that he has everything under control. Then, the atmosphere suddenly changes. A familiar voice echoes through the room. Mujin Kong, calmly stepping inside while holding Dee in a chokehold with a gun pressed against his head. He expresses surprise that Hannah chose stealing data over saving her own brother. Mocking her further, he asks whether she really believed he was joking when he gave her a limited amount of time earlier. As he tightens his grip on Dee, Hannah instantly raises her weapon and boldly declares that he is not the only armed person in the room. Then everything happens at once. She orders Dee to cooperate before suddenly leaping forward and shouting for him to lower his head. With flawless accuracy, Hannah shoots directly at the handcuffs restraining her brother. The cuffs shatter instantly, allowing Dee to break free from Mu-Jin Kong's grip. Mu-Jin Kong crashes onto the floor, but he still keeps his gun aimed toward Dee. Before he can fire, Hannah shoots the weapon straight out of his hand. Coldly, she tells him to surrender, because he is already losing. To everyone's surprise, Mu-Jin Kong bursts into laughter. Completely unfazed, he casually walks toward the elevator and calmly replies that surrender is impossible. As he disappears, Hannah urgently turns toward Gavin and asks how much longer the download needs. 99%. Relief briefly washes over her. They are almost finished. Then, in a shocking twist, Mu-Jin Kong suddenly reappears behind her, grabs her straight into the elevator. Locked inside together, he smirks and remarks that now it is finally just the two of them. Hannah coldly replies that although she once admired his audacity, he has crossed too many lines. Unbothered, Mu-Jin Kong calmly admits that he believes he has fallen in love with her all over again. At the same time, Hannah slowly realizes something terrifying. The pain in her leg lines up exactly with the location where C implanted the GPS chip earlier. She begins wondering whether the crash damaged it because blood is steadily soaking through her clothes. Before her thoughts spiral further, Mu-Jin Kong tries pulling her attention back toward him. Hannah sharply replies that she never imagined he could actually be this insane. Even as he continues trying to get her attention, she refuses to yield, making it clear that she alone decides who deserves her focus. Mu-Jin Kong simply grins. Then he begins talking about the future awaiting her if she stays beside Julio Parenti. According to him, Hannah has already destroyed any chance of returning to Korea. After everything she has done and all the people she killed, Italy probably would not welcome her either, especially considering her connection to Julio. Leaning closer, he quietly suggests that the two of them could escape together instead. Before he can continue, strange noises suddenly echo throughout the building. Confused, Mu-Jin Kong pauses. The explosion was only supposed to affect the first basement level. Then the entire building begins shaking violently. Alarms erupt everywhere. Completely calm, Hannah informs him that he is not the only person skilled with explosives. With eerie confidence, she reveals that the entire crime scene is about to transform from a murder investigation into a collapsing building disaster. Meanwhile, Dee and Gavin Smith successfully escape the building alive. However, Dee refuses to leave without Hannah no matter how dangerous the situation becomes. Gavin desperately tries convincing him otherwise, reminding him of the promise he made to Hannah. He insists that Hannah would never want her brother throwing his life away after everything she sacrificed to save him. The internal conflict inside Dee becomes unbearable. Then, suddenly, military vehicles flood the area while helicopters circle overhead. Shocked, Dee wonders why the military has arrived and what it could possibly mean. Back inside the collapsing building, Hannah's condition rapidly worsens. Blood continues pouring from her injured leg while Mu-Jin Kong remains beside her, oddly unconcerned about the situation. He casually criticizes her reckless decision to bring down the entire building. Annoyed and exhausted, Hannah cuts him off immediately. To make matters worse, oxygen inside the damaged elevator is running dangerously low. Still speaking calmly, Mu-Jin Kong points out her worsening condition. He notes the dizziness from blood loss, her unstable breathing, and the increasing likelihood that she may lose consciousness and die. Then, surprisingly, he begins telling Hannah about his past. He reveals that the name Yansong was given to him by his adoptive parents. Although they were not biologically related, they genuinely loved him and made him feel like he belonged somewhere for the first time in his life. Unfortunately, tragedy followed him everywhere. After losing them, he spiraled into madness and eventually entered the drug trade. During that chaotic period, he met Mok Kong and initially viewed him as a savior. Instead, he became trapped inside the identity of Mu-Jin Kong. Quietly, he admits that his original plan was to abandon the name Mu-Jin Kong forever and begin a new life as Yansong. Ironically, everything collapsed because he fell in love with the very woman who ruined those plans. Realizing they may not survive much longer, Mu-Jin Kong asks Hannah one final question. Even for a brief moment, did she ever consider choosing him? Just as Hannah is about to answer, loud banging suddenly echoes outside the elevator doors. Then light breaks through the cracks. Julio Parenti has arrived. The moment the doors finally open, Julio immediately reaches for Hannah and pulls her into a desperate embrace. Ignoring her warnings, he swears that he will never let her go again. But in the middle of the embrace, Hannah suddenly collapses unconscious in his arms. Consumed by rage and fear, Julio turns toward Mu-Jin Kong and bitterly asks whether he is satisfied now. Before anything else can happen, police forces suddenly surround the building. The moment Julio emerges carrying Hannah in his arms, armed officers immediately place him under arrest. They accuse him of involvement in the Mun shipping cruise ship massacre, murder, and drug trafficking. Within seconds, dozens of guns are aimed directly at him as the entire situation reaches its breaking point. Despite the dozens of guns aimed directly at him, Julio Parenti does not flinch even once. He calmly stares back at the officers and asks whether they truly intend to shoot an injured woman who desperately needs medical help. Without waiting for permission, he orders them to step aside. The sheer confidence in his voice leaves the officers hesitating long enough for him to move forward and gently place Hannah into the waiting medic's care. Softly stroking her hair, Julio whispers to her unconscious form that everything will be all right because she is Hannah Lee. As soon as he steps away from her bedside, Dee explodes with rage. Furious beyond reason, he storms toward Julio while cursing endlessly and demanding to know what he did to his sister. Without hesitation, Dee throws a punch and swears he will kill him. Even then, Julio remains perfectly calm. Quietly apologizing, he tells Dee that he cannot allow that to happen because the only person allowed to deal with him is Hannah herself. Although Julio apologizes sincerely, Dee is still blinded by anger and attempts another punch. This time, Julio smoothly blocks it and firmly reminds him that he already allowed him one hit. Any further fighting can wait. Right now, Hannah's condition matters more than anything else. Just as the confrontation threatens to spiral completely out of control, another voice suddenly interrupts the scene with dry sarcasm, asking whether they are filming some kind of soap opera. The newcomer is soon revealed to be MV Sergey. Looking around coldly, he remarks that every criminal he has been chasing somehow managed to gather in one convenient place. Then he warns them not to even think about escaping because they have all been caught red-handed. Unimpressed, Julio casually asks whether the CIA truly has nothing better to do than harass innocent law-abiding citizens like him. MV Sergey immediately scoffs at the statement. A law-abiding citizen? According to him, Julio Parenti is the most tempting criminal target he has ever seen. Without hesitation, he orders the officers to surround everyone completely and declares that criminals belong behind bars. Then he prepares the handcuffs intended for Julio. Suddenly, Gavin Smith charges into the scene. He immediately insists that Julio and Dee are not the real criminals they are searching for. Confused and irritated, MV Sergey demands an explanation and argues that the investigation is already closed. However, Gavin refuses to back down. Pulling out a flash drive containing evidence recovered from Edward Liu's hideout, he passionately argues that both Julio Parenti and Dee Lee are being framed. According to Gavin, he spent months investigating Edward Liu personally. Still skeptical, MV Sergey questions whether Gavin has lost his mind and refuses to trust unverified evidence from a random USB drive. Before the argument can continue, a car suddenly screeches onto the scene. Without missing a beat, Julio tosses a business card onto the ground and calmly tells MV Sergey that if he has further complaints, he should direct them toward his attorney because he currently has a hospital visit scheduled. Moments later, the vehicle speeds away, leaving MV Sergey furious and shouting that Julio Parenti better enjoy his freedom while it lasts. Later that day, Julio quietly sits beside Hannah's hospital bed while she recovers. Eventually, Hannah slowly wakes up. At first, she struggles to understand where she is and who is sitting beside her. Then realization dawns on her. It is Julio. The moment he notices her awake, he immediately grabs her hand and calls out her name with a visibly gloomy expression. Despite everything, Hannah laughs softly and jokes that she really did not want to wake up to his grieving face staring down at her. Julio exhales deeply in relief. Hannah gently asks whether he was worried about her. Apologizing quietly, Julio squeezes her hand and admits that he is simply grateful she survived. Their conversation slowly turns intimate as they lean closer together and share a kiss. Soon, Julio admits that the thought of losing her terrified him more than anything else. Although he clearly wants to continue basking in the romantic atmosphere, Hannah repeatedly interrupts him because there is something important she needs to discuss first. Eventually, Julio finally asks what is bothering her. Nervously, Hannah asks about Dee. Julio immediately reassures her that her brother is safe, receiving treatment, and most likely asleep already because of how late it is. The relief on Hannah's face is unmistakable. Meanwhile, Julio quietly hopes the questions are finally over so they can return to the warmth they shared before. Pulling her close again, he admits that he has been suppressing his feelings for far too long. Elsewhere, Se-Jang scolds Hannah for not informing her about the plan to destroy the building. Overcome with emotion, Se admits she was terrified Hannah would not survive. Trying to comfort her, Hannah gently reminds Se about her pregnancy and insists she should not cry for the baby's sake. Even so, Se continues blaming herself for helping. Then, unexpectedly, Hannah kisses Se softly on the cheek and tells her that she survived because of everything Se did for her. Nearby, both Julio and Yuri Petrov silently observe the touching moment between the two women. Eventually, Yuri interrupts and asks Hannah about her future plans after returning to Korea. He casually brings up rumors claiming she intends to work as a bodyguard at the Blue House. Caught off guard, Hannah glances at Julio before admitting she never personally mentioned such plans to Yuri. Completely unfazed, Yuri simply replies that there are always ways to learn these things. Then, he presents Hannah with an offer. He claims he can provide enough evidence to completely clear Dee's name, but only if she agrees to hand Mujin Kong over to him. Surprised, Sei immediately asks whether this means Mujin Kong will be released afterward. Yuri calmly explains that Mujin Kong will first be handed over to the FBI so Gavin Smith can claim credit for the arrest. However, Yuri heavily implies that Mujin Kong may eventually escape custody somehow, considering his history as a notorious troublemaker. Remembering the painful story Mujin Kong shared earlier, Hannah reluctantly agrees to consider Yuri's offer, but only if Dee agrees first. Meanwhile, Dee personally interrogates Mujin Kong. During the tense exchange, Mujin Kong provides 3 different names for himself: Mujin Kong, Edward Liu, and Yan Song Yu. Then Dee drops another major revelation. Once they arrive in Cambodia, the FBI will immediately take Mujin Kong into custody. To complicate matters further, Yuri Petrov also seems eager to get his hands on him for reasons of his own. Despite all the pressure surrounding him, Dee refuses to bow to the demands of a criminal. Smirking faintly, he points out that Dee himself is currently standing aboard a ship owned by another infamous criminal. The tension intensifies further when Dee angrily calls out Mujin Kong's strangely calm behavior. That is when the conversation suddenly becomes personal again. Mujin Kong admits that he stays calm largely because he worries about Hannah. In fact, he openly says that he likes Dee because he reminds him so much of her. Dee immediately rejects any attempt at friendliness. Completely unfazed, Mujin Kong decides to reveal another secret instead. According to him, his brother Muho Kong is deeply entangled in drug trafficking operations throughout Cambodia. Worse still, his brother's criminal influence is becoming increasingly dangerous because he is now pursuing public office. The revelation paints an even darker picture of the political conspiracy surrounding the entire situation. Mujin Kong then attempts to manipulate Dee by portraying himself as the lesser evil in comparison to Muho Kong. Before the confrontation can explode further, Hannah steps in. Unlike the others, she approaches the situation rationally. She bluntly tells Mujin Kong that if he truly wants to eliminate his brother, then he should stop hiding behind others and do it himself. Their discussion transforms into a psychological chess match. Mujin Kong argues that he cannot act freely while they continue holding him prisoner, but Hannah immediately counters by pointing out that they may have actually saved his life. According to Yuri's information, multiple assassins are already hunting him despite the public believing he is dead. Then Hannah exposes the truth behind Mujin Kong's fake death. She explains that he staged everything because he wanted a completely new life, but his continued existence threatens Muho Kong's ambitions. The easiest way to silence him permanently would be assassination. At the same time, she openly reveals that Mujin Kong intended to use Dee as bait in a deadly game. After a long silence, Mujin Kong suddenly bursts into laughter. Admitting defeat for the moment, he acknowledges that Hannah completely outplayed him. Using the intelligence Yuri provided earlier, Hannah informs him that Muho Kong has already arrived in Cambodia. The walls are closing in fast, and with that, Hannah finally places a deal on the table. Later, Hannah finds herself alone with her thoughts. Even though Dee is finally safe, countless problems still remain unresolved. Her mind spirals endlessly with questions. Will Mujin Kong accept her proposal? Can she truly clear her brother's name? And most importantly, what will happen to Julio Parenti? The weight of everything pressing down on her feels unbearable. Deep inside, Hannah realizes she is walking an impossibly dangerous line. Although she loves Julio, she fully understands the consequences of being tied to a mafia boss. Her dream of working at the Blue House could disappear forever. She cannot afford to let emotions destroy her future. While lost in thought, Julio quietly approaches her and asks what she is thinking about. With a teasing smile, Hannah answers honestly, him. Julio immediately kisses her forehead and softly reveals that their ship will dock the next day. Then, taking her hand, he says he wants to bring both her and Dee back to his villa. To his surprise, Hannah gently pulls her hand away and refuses. Instead, she explains that she needs to visit Dee's home in Phnom Penh first. Quietly, he asks whether this means she is saying goodbye to him. Looking genuinely disappointed, Julio rests his head against her shoulder and asks her for a little more time before she decides to leave him completely. Hannah quickly comforts him. This is not goodbye. She promises that once work settles down, she will visit him herself, or perhaps he could visit Korea instead. Surely they can find a way to make things work. Confused, Julio asks whether she truly has no intention of leaving him behind. At last, Hannah fully opens her heart. She admits that her feelings go far beyond simple attraction. She loves him. The confession overwhelms Julio completely as the two hold each other tightly. Later, they relax together beside the ship's pool with wine glasses in hand. Julio quietly remarks that today may be their final day together. Hannah immediately corrects him. This is not the end. Caught up in emotion, Julio kisses her legs gently, overwhelmed by happiness after hearing her confession. A man who once viewed life as meaningless now suddenly fears death because he finally has someone worth living for. Softly, Julio tells Hannah that he loves her too. The moment leads naturally into another passionate kiss. As preparations for departure begin, Sei quietly admits she hopes to see Hana again someday and invites her to visit the island in the future. Meanwhile, Julio secretly slips Hana his phone and quietly encourages her to contact him whenever she wants. Eventually, the time for separation arrives. Hana boards another ship alongside Dee. During the journey, Dee explains that he plans to return to Rio after settling things involving Tan Choi. Then he asks whether Hana intends to come with him. Before she can answer, loud commotion suddenly erupts nearby. Looking into the distance, Hana realizes another ship is in chaos because someone is attempting to help Mu Jin Kong escape. Concerned about the impact this could have on their plans, Hana questions Dee immediately. Surprisingly, Dee admits he has no intention of stopping Mu Jin Kong's escape. In fact, he is far more worried about the possibility of Mu Ho Kong becoming president. According to Dee, if Mu Jin Kong survives, he may be the only person capable of stopping his brother. With their goals finally aligned, the twins silently agree to see the plan through to the end. On the other end of the phone, Tan Choi nervously warns someone that Ma Kong is already on his trail. His voice trembles with genuine fear as he admits that he barely escaped death the last time, and doubts his luck will save him again. While he is still caught up in the frantic conversation, Hana casually walks into the room and mockingly comments on how obvious his panic sounds. Her sudden appearance startles him so badly that he drops the phone. After recovering from the shock, Tan anxiously asks how she managed to find him. Hana coldly replies that he looks like he has seen a ghost. Almost immediately afterward, Dee climbs in through the window, answering Tan's desperate question about where he had been. Hana reminds Tan about the promise she made during their last encounter. The next time they met, she intended to finish him off. Then she turns toward Dee and asks what they should do with him. Without hesitation, Dee answers that they should make it hurt. Terrified, Tan begs for his life, but Hana calmly points out that even if they spared him, Mo Kong would never allow him to return to Korea alive anyway. Then she asks him a chilling question. Does he want to live? Before Tan can answer, the sound of screeching tires echoes outside the building. Mo Kong has arrived. Stepping out of the vehicle, Mo Kong remarks that Tan clearly possesses a strong survival instinct considering he chose such an isolated hospital to hide in. Still, Mo Kong calmly announces that Tan will die today. Moments later, the hospital room door bursts open as Mo Kong storms inside. Glancing at Tan's condition, he dryly comments that the injuries appear worse than expected. In fact, he casually remarks that things might have been simpler if Tan had died immediately instead of surviving. Shaking with fear, Tan angrily demands to know why Mo Kong never warned him about the dangerous side effects of the drugs involved in their scheme. Completely indifferent, Mo Kong dismisses the complaint and blames Tan for ruining everything by leaking evidence. Then he changes the subject and asks where Dee Lee is hiding. Alarmed, Tan immediately asks whether Mo Kong intends to hurt Dee as well. Without answering, Mo Kong slowly pulls a gun from his jacket and presses it directly against Tan's forehead. Coldly, he demands Dee's location. When Tan insists he does not know, Mo Kong calmly declares that this is the end for him. Terrified beyond reason, Tan suddenly screams Hana's name and begs her for help. Confused, Mo Kong questions why Tan is suddenly calling for Hana. Before he can think further, loud noises erupt outside the room as Hana begins fighting through Mo Kong's men. Then the door slowly opens. Without hesitation, Mo Kong points the gun directly at her and demands to know whether she understands who he is. Completely unshaken, Hana identifies him immediately, Mu Ho Kong, member of the Korean National Assembly, or more accurately, a criminal. Everything happening inside the hospital is currently being live-streamed across South Korea. The moment Mo Kong checks the broadcast, Hana draws her weapon and publicly accuses him of drug trafficking, attempted murder, hiring assassins, and destroying evidence. Comments from viewers immediately begin flooding the livestream, condemning him from every direction. Facing overwhelming public exposure, Hana challenges him directly and dares him to make his next move. Realizing the situation has spiraled completely out of control, Mo Kong quickly flees the hospital. After he escapes, Tan angrily questions why Hana allowed him to run despite all his crimes. Before he can continue complaining, Dee suddenly storms back into the room and smacks him across the head, demanding to know who he thinks he is for speaking to Hana that way. Hana quickly calms her brother down and explains that someone else is already prepared to handle Mo Kong. Stepping outside, she quietly watches Mo Kong flee into the distance and calmly remarks that his downfall has only just begun. Inside the room, Tan nervously asks whether that means they are finally finished with him. Dee immediately cuts him off. He warns Tan to stay alive because once he completes his prison sentence, he personally plans to come back for him. Then Dee slams the door shut behind them as he and Hana leave the hospital together. Back at home, Hana informs Dee that Logan called earlier with bad news. Mu Jin Kong's men completely ransacked her apartment in Korea. Dee asks whether she wants to leave with him, but Hana explains that returning to Korea immediately is impossible now because her face spread everywhere during the livestream. When Dee cautiously brings up Julio Parenti, Hana hesitates. She admits she still is not ready to decide what she wants to do about him. Then D unexpectedly begins talking about how different they are. According to him, Hannah constantly sacrifices herself for other people, while he has become numb to losing teammates because of his line of work. When Hannah attempts changing the subject by asking about his flight plans, D catches her off guard completely. He tells her she should go to Julio. More importantly, he admits that he simply wants her to be happy. No matter where life takes them, he promises he will always support her. Finally, he thanks Hannah for everything she did to save him before pulling her into a warm embrace. A few days later, D safely returns to Korea. Meanwhile, news broadcasts everywhere explode with reports about the arrest warrant issued for Mo Kong. The media endlessly discusses his alleged crimes as the public becomes obsessed with the scandal. At the same time, Hannah's identity becomes completely exposed after the live stream incident. As a result, her dream of working as a Blue House bodyguard disappears instantly before it even begins. One evening, Hannah lies quietly on her bed reflecting on everything Dee told her before leaving. Suddenly, her phone vibrates. When she checks it, GPS coordinates appear on the screen. Immediately, she remembers the mysterious message Julio sent her earlier asking her to come find him. Slowly, realization dawns on her. Did he secretly install a tracker inside the phone he gave her? As Hannah studies the coordinates more carefully, she notices two separate locations slowly moving closer together. One of them almost certainly belongs to Julio, but who is at the second location? Before she can think further, someone knocks on the door. To her complete surprise, Mu Jin Kong is standing outside. Caught off guard, Hannah asks why he suddenly appeared there. Instead of answering properly, he casually says he desperately needs to use her bathroom because the blood covering his clothes makes him look like a criminal. As she watches him remove his bloodstained clothing, curiosity eventually gets the better of her and she asks about his weapon. Completely relaxed, Mu Jin Kong explains that he discarded the gun after running out of ammunition. Then he casually thanks Hannah for helping him earlier. Still calm, he remarks that she frightened Mok Kong badly enough to make him hire 15 bodyguards overnight. Curious, Hannah asks whether he already dealt with Mok Kong personally. Mu Jin Kong shakes his head. According to him, Mok Kong deserves a far more fitting ending. After finishing his shower, Hannah unexpectedly shows him kindness by giving him antibiotics and painkillers. She even offers him the empty room next door so he can rest. Then the conversation shifts toward the mysterious GPS signal. Hannah reveals the shocking truth. Julio Parenti secretly implanted a tracker inside Mu Jin Kong's body. The constant signal now means someone important is approaching quickly. Mu Jin Kong calmly suggests they head outside. As they move toward the door, Hannah begins wondering whether the second GPS signal belongs to Julio himself. The moment the door opens, her suspicion is confirmed. Julio Parenti stands there. Without hesitation, Hannah rushes straight into his arms. Before she can even ask how he found her, Julio pulls her into a deep, passionate kiss. Smirking afterward, he jokingly asks whether finding him is really the first thing she wants to discuss after being apart for so long. Then, more seriously, Julio admits that once Hannah left, he realized just how unbearable life without her truly felt. Every single day apart from her drove him insane because he never knew whether she planned to come back. According to him, that desperation is exactly what led him there. Sensing her uncertainty, Julio gently explains that returning to Korea immediately is impossible for her now. But he has another idea. She could come with him instead. Teasingly, he promises he has a surprise waiting for her. Soon afterward, Julio takes Hannah to a massive estate and casually asks whether the Parenti family castle meets her standards. Hannah openly admits that the place is incredible, but she cannot understand why he brought her there. Julio answers honestly. He wants to introduce her to his family. However, before that happens, there are still a few things they need to handle first. As Hannah walks through the mansion, she notices something strange. The enormous estate is completely silent. No servants, no guards, no staff anywhere. Before she can mention it, Julio wraps an arm around her waist and pulls her into a secluded corner. Smiling mischievously, he asks whether she enjoys the idea of strangers listening to them. Confused, Hannah wonders whether this is what he meant about unfinished business. Instead of answering, Julio silences her with another kiss. Still slightly worried, Hannah asks whether someone might interrupt them. Julio reassures her immediately. He already made sure nobody will disturb them until tomorrow. Relieved, Hannah decides to stop overthinking and simply enjoy the moment. Their heated kissing quickly intensifies until Julio pushes open a nearby bedroom door and pulls her inside. Breathing heavily, he playfully throws her onto the bed and tells her that from now on, even if she begs him to stop, he will not let her go. To his surprise, Hannah admits that is exactly what she wants. As the tension between them deepens further, Hannah finally confesses her feelings directly. She loves him. Instead of immediately saying the words back, Julio gently takes her hand and teasingly tells her she should have added "to" at the end. Later that night, while the two lie together in bed, Julio quietly brings up the need to find someone trustworthy who understands security matters. Julio suggests that if Hannah joins him permanently, she could establish her own security company so they would never have to rely on outsiders again. Skeptical, Hannah asks when exactly he came up with such a plan. To her surprise, Julio admits he started thinking about it long before she betrayed him to save her brother. With a playful smirk, Hannah points out that she still has not agreed to anything yet. She makes it perfectly clear that her skills are expensive, and if the offer is not worthwhile, she has no problem walking away. But Julio refuses to let the matter go. According to him, after everything they have been through, she cannot simply disappear from his life anymore. Teasingly, he says she is not going anywhere until she officially becomes a parenti. Then he casually reveals that he has already picked a fight with his stubborn old grandfather because of her. When Hannah looks confused, Julio clarifies that he is talking about the head of the parenti family. He explains that his grandfather is hosting a birthday party the next day, prompting Hannah to ask whether that is what he meant earlier when he talked about introducing her to his family. Still keeping her guessing, Julio says there are a few matters they need to settle first. The following day, both of them dress elegantly for the occasion. Stepping out of the room, Julio asks whether Hannah is ready. After receiving a confident nod, he takes her hand and leads her toward the gathering. The moment they enter the lavish celebration, Hannah immediately notices the atmosphere. Wealthy guests fill the room, and almost everyone seems focused entirely on Julio Parenti. Sensing her gaze, Julio teasingly asks whether she is feeling jealous. Softly reassuring her, he explains that he only needs to greet his grandfather and promises not to leave her alone for long. Then he kisses her forehead gently before stepping away. Watching the event unfold around her, Hannah quietly wonders what kind of birthday party this really is, because it clearly feels like far more than a simple family gathering. Moments later, the answer arrives. Julio's grandfather enters the room accompanied by two younger women. Calmly observing Hannah, the old man comments on Julio's boldness in bringing a foreign woman into the Parenti family despite repeated warnings. Without hesitation, Julio proudly declares that Hannah is the woman he chose. The statement visibly surprises his grandfather, who remarks that Hannah looks extremely young. Never one to back down, Hannah cheekily replies that she is probably older than the women standing beside him. The comment immediately earns her a sharp glare and the accusation of being disrespectful. Completely unbothered, Hannah simply smiles and announces that she plans to explore the mansion a little before any unnecessary family drama begins. Before she leaves, Julio quietly warns her to stay careful because they are technically standing in mafia territory. As Hannah walks away, the old man casually suggests that perhaps she would be better suited as Julio's mistress rather than his wife. Julio immediately rejects the idea. Firmly, he reiterates that Hannah is the only woman he intends to stand beside. Shortly afterward, Julio summons Romano, who hands him an envelope containing legal documents. Inside are papers transferring ownership of the island and the surrounding beaches directly to Julio. Calmly, Julio explains that he upheld his end of the agreement and asks his grandfather to stop interfering in his personal life. Unfortunately, the old man has no intention of backing down. Smirking coldly, he crushes the documents in his hand before snapping his fingers. Instantly, armed men rush toward Hannah. Visibly astonished, Julio's grandfather remarks that his grandson truly pushed him too far this time. However, before the situation can escalate properly, his men begin collapsing one after another. Each of them is effortlessly defeated by Hannah Lee. With composed confidence, Hannah walks forward and directly addresses Julio's grandfather as Grandpa. Ignoring his furious ranting in Italian, she boldly declares her claim over Julio Parenti. According to Hannah, Julio belongs to her regardless of what anyone else thinks. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Mo Kong desperately runs through thick forest terrain while gasping for breath. Looking behind him repeatedly, he nervously reassures himself that nobody could possibly have followed him all the way to such a remote hiding place. Relief slowly washes over him when he remembers that the mercenary group allowed him access to one of their safe houses. As he approaches the location, Mok Kong reflects on the strange contradictions surrounding Mu Jin Kong's behavior. Even after betraying the people supporting him, Mu Jin Kong somehow continues surviving. Before he can think further, someone suddenly appears behind him. Mu Jin Kong remarks that betrayal was the only way he could stay alive. Terrified, Mok Kong demands to know who dares hold a knife against his throat. Coldly, Mu Jin Kong answers that he is the very monster Mok Kong helped create. Shaken, Mo Kong asks how he managed to find him. In response, Mu Jin Kong presses the knife harder against his throat and questions whether Mo Kong is really in a position to ask questions anymore. Then he delivers a warning. Mo Kong should return to Korea, surrender himself and quietly serve a year in prison. Otherwise, the next meeting between them will end with his throat slit open. More importantly, Mu Jin Kong warns him to stay away from both Dee and Hannah Lee entirely. Afterward, Mu Jin Kong disappears back into the forest. As he walks away, memories begin surfacing in his mind. He recalls seeing Julio and Hannah together, openly loving each other in ways he never managed to achieve. Even until the very end, Hannah refused to choose him. Quietly, Mu Jin Tong mutters that perhaps this really is goodbye. Elsewhere, Hannah and Julio soar through the sky together inside a helicopter. Curious, Hannah asks where they are going. Instead of answering directly, Julio asks where she would like to go. Letting out a soft sigh, Hannah decides to play along. Climbing onto his lap, she smiles and says that anywhere is fine as long as they are together. Grinning mischievously, Julio tells her she looks so beautiful that it is almost blinding. The playful teasing between them quickly melts into another deep, passionate kiss. 3 months later, a group of men find themselves trapped on the rooftop of Tiano headquarters, uncertain whether anyone is coming to save them. Then the unmistakable sound of helicopter blades fills the air. Their rescue has arrived. Hannah lands the helicopter smoothly and immediately begins coordinating with her team through an earpiece. Curious about the situation inside the building, she asks for details regarding the newly formed gang that infiltrated the company. According to the report, the gang entered searching for both technology and hidden drugs or firearms connected to the company's controversial history. Once Hannah receives confirmation of their targets and location, she calmly promises to make the intruders regret stepping foot inside the building. As the helicopter settles completely, she steps out and approaches the men waiting on the rooftop. Spotting a Grand Prix champion associated with the company, she confirms his identity and assures him personally that she will guarantee his safety. Suddenly, her phone rings. Julio. Answering quickly, Hannah informs him that she is currently handling a mission. Julio, however, has one specific request. He orders her to resolve the situation without getting even a single drop of blood on herself. Then he jokingly warns her that there will be consequences if she fails. Amused, Hannah promises to do her best. Armed and fully prepared, she strides confidently into the building with her weapon drawn. Facing the gang directly, Hannah casually says one final word before the confrontation begins: "Ciao." And with that, the story of Hannah Lee and the mafia boss finally reaches its conclusion.